Let me ask you: is it reasonable if a man happens to have absolutely abandoned his friend only like a mere 19 times when he says he's absolutely positively going to be in the same place at the same time every week, and then just happens to completely abandon that, even though he said on pain of death I would definitely be there at that time? Is it reasonable for the man to send you like 15 messages when you're just a couple minutes late from the very latest time you said you would absolutely be at the same place? I don't think so. I don't think that's reasonable. I think that's a little possessive. There's no reason to suspect that you need to contact me. I mean, come on. Anyway, welcome back to the Dynasty Grind. My name is Peter Howard at PA Howdy on Twitter and Threads and everywhere else you might need an at or a name. We do a Dynasty, mostly Dynasty, but pretty much just fantasy football live stream every Wednesday at 9:30, which is about now, you'll notice, where we talk to anyone and everyone about whatever they think or have questions about trades they're interested in doing or interested in trying to construct or anything else. If you have one of those or a thought or you want to just chat, preferably about Dynasty or fantasy, drop those comments, thoughts, or just general statements in whatever trade box, whatever streaming platform we actually go to these days happens to provide you. We do go through them democratically in terms of we're lazy, so we go through in the order in which they turn up. Other than that, there's really no rules around here, so welcome in, I guess, and let's go talk to Zach. Hey, Zach, how you doing?
Hey, Peter. It's because I'm sitting here and I can hear the audience behind on the other side of the curtain going, "We want the grind. We want the grind." And so I don't think it was out of line to get. I sent you 3 words. I sent confirming Wednesday and then Pete ?
You literally sent me like 20 threatening messages. I don't know what you're talking about. That's my memory of the whole affair. Yeah, Scott Fishbowl. That seems to be mostly the talk on Fantasyland right now. The Eliminators are starting to kick off. Like literally, you sign up for them and they're almost immediately on the clock. So just a warning, they're filling up so quickly you almost immediately get into the draft. You barely have time to settle into the scoring system. I definitely haven't, or even find the group chat and insult some people, because that's how I choose to roll. Tell everyone you're going to kick their ass and just never mention it again, especially after they beat you, and that kind of thing before you're almost immediately on the clock. I'm in 3, including my own already. So, and I think 2 of them have already been on the clock twice. So pretty quick.
Wow, you're flying through. I've only been on the clock once in each, so I'm in 4 eliminators and once in each. No, that's not true, because in yours you made sure that I have the 18th pick, so I'm patiently waiting. I knew that was, you were like, all right, Bosch, the only way that I have a fighting chance against Zach.
That's I'm the one that needed that's true. That's absolutely no. I had no idea until he turned up in the chat like, hey, what's my 18th pick? I didn't even know it started, I'll be honest, until you were like, hey, you're on the clock. Also, where are you? Okay. Anyway, but yeah, what's the scoring in Scott Fishbowl this year? I have no.
The actual Scott Fishbowl hasn't been released yet. I don't think that usually is somewhere around June. But the eliminators, Bosch has done. See, we want the grind. Bosch has done standard scoring, except this year it is Stranger Things themed. So there's an upside down. So when a quarterback throws an interception, it's positive 4 points. When a running back fumbles it to the other team, it's positive points. So
that's weird.
Yeah, I mean it's the upside down.
Yeah. Well, we'll find out, I guess. Toronto Dave, I have no idea. I have no human weight. That is an unknowable number of party hat guys, and especially when intermixed with other emojis. Like, no one can count that high. I don't know what to tell you. But I appreciate it. Thanks very much. That's it. That's it for the grind this week.
Well, but I think we're in the throes of rookie draft season. So like, I know that like we've done the whole process, and that like that's really what's fun for at least you and me. Although this year you were very anti the process until like right up before the draft, and then you're like, all right, well, I only have to work for these 2 weeks. And then I'm done because I don't want to talk about the rookie drafts, but I don't want to talk about anything pre-NFL draft. But like for me, it's been this marathon from November to April, and now in May it's a sprint to try to get some of the information back out to people where it's consumable, because now things are hitting the road. You know, the rubber is meeting the road where we're actually having practical drafts. Like I think I've been in 3 rookie drafts so far. Not everybody's rookie drafts are happening now, but it's a fairly popular time to be doing it.
I don't have a lot of draft capital in my rookie draft, so I have to admit they've gone mostly unnoticed. Like I've grabbed Kamani Vidal. I'm grabbing the later third round running backs and some of the tight ends. I grabbed Tez Walker somewhere late, I think, in like 4th round. So yeah, what struck me most of the drafts I've seen is Brock Bowers going around 8th. I've seen that fairly often, and I'm like, huh, okay, that's one way to live. I mean, Penix and Bo Nix go before him, or JJ McCarthy, and I'm like, I mean, I don't judge kink, but I mean that seems a little messy. But yeah.
I made a trade last week.
It doesn't let me log in anymore. It wants me to re-log in. Like, screw you, Sleeper. I'm never logging into my Sleeper leagues again. Sorry, Patreons. You asked me to. You made it. You insisted it's on Sleeper, and now I'm banned. So, good luck with you.
I made a trade in. I had a league where I didn't have any picks, and so I traded into. I got bored. I did a bad thing, so I traded Josh Allen for the 103 and Jordan Love and a 4th round pick. And so I ended up getting Jordan Love, Jaden Daniels, and then Rasheen Ali with the 4th.
Oh, nice. Yeah, that's bad. But yeah, I see what you're doing. Yeah, I get it. Yeah. Josh Allen is old and doesn't have Stephen Diggs anymore. Well, he's bad.
But my hope is, and I wish I had looked at this before, because Russ has Kyler Murray on his team. What I was really hoping to do was roll that from Josh Allen to Jordan Love to then a quarterback who I think is better, who is valued less than Jordan Love, and get like Kyler plus for Jordan Love, or Purdy plus for Jordan Love, or maybe not Purdy. I don't know. Like Purdy and Love are pretty similar, but like something like that where I could get into another quarterback that I like more, but get a plus on because everybody else loves Love.
Yeah, I get it. I get where we're going with that. It's more of a building move, but Daniels could, if he hits hard, would be a win there. I made a trade as well. I think it was in my Patreon league. Brian Thomas fell to the early 2nd instead of the late 1st, and so I traded. I was thinking, what would Zach do in this situation? He wouldn't be in this situation. He has draft capital. So I bought on credit. I traded my 25 first to get up there, and I added like a later pick as well, and a 26 second just to balance it, because I'm now evacuating 25 almost entirely. I'm like, I better get something over there too. And when I suck, I'll build on 26. And I got Brian Thomas at like a 202, 203, I think it was.
It's insane to me, because I'm seeing that, and it's not in every draft, but like in each draft, one of either Worthy or Thomas is falling like crazy. And I
see
don't.
Worthy falling to the late first all the time.
Yeah.
This is one of the reasons I was considering putting Brian Thomas in and around above Ndunze and Worthy, because it just feels like he's a forgotten man, but we feel he's pretty close to that tier of players, if you know what I mean. But sorry, carry on. What were you saying about you see one or the other falling?
Yeah, but it's a very similar thing to what you're saying. Is to me that's a tier. And it doesn't. I don't really care what order you have it in, whether you have it Odunze, Thomas, Worthy, or Worthy, Thomas, Odunze, or any combination. I mean, there are only 3 guys, so you're only making 9 combinations. But like it's a thing. Like, I think that group of wide receivers is all pretty similar, but they're not being valued that way.
Dave, I actually think this is a good point. When rookie drafts, in and around the rookie draft, you'll see increased activity. This is when you get your trades, but people are going to check in again, right? They're going to check what their favorite analyst said. They're going to look at their ranks. They're going to do whatever they do, but they're going to check their league at least to see when the rookie draft. When is my rookie draft? Oh, it's tomorrow, or something like that. And so you will see increased activity. I also want to point out you're going to see a big decrease in activity not so long after it. So now is the time to, even if you're not going to get them, to try and make some of that hay happen and send out some offers, get active. Even if it's not active in your league right now, like Dave is experiencing, or one of his leagues might not be, still start sending offers now, because anywhere in and around the draft, people have to check in a little bit. And then there's a big wait that we always forget. Like right now, let's draft. And then it happens and we're like, oh, I guess I'll twiddle my thumbs 2 months. And that's why the Scott Fishbowl is actually pretty well timed, because it takes up part of that dead period. I actually like that about it. Well, one of the many things. But yeah, it's a great point, Dave.
It's funny too. Like it is exactly the time when you can make trades and make moves. And I think people get impatient at this point, Dave, too, where like you can get some moves done right now based on either news or no news or people's interest in the draft. And I think that one of the boons of having a good class, and I talked a little bit about this on the Dynasty Dummies last week, and I got to talk to J Mike. We may revisit this a little bit, but one of the really nice things about having a good class in a rookie draft is that it makes those picks just so much easier to trade. And because we're in the throes of rookie fever, you can move those picks for players who are already proven. So I just started the show on Apple TV, Dark Matter, and the opening scene is this professor, and he's talking about Schrodinger's cat. And he's got the whole thing drawn up where you've got the Geiger counter and the degrading molecule, and if it degrades, the Geiger counter goes off, it sets off the poison, the cat dies, but you don't. Yeah. So the cat is both alive and dead. And I think that right now we forget that all of these rookies are both alive and dead. Like all of these rookies right now are whatever their ceiling is, but they are also whatever their floor is, because nothing has happened yet. And most of fantasy football only sees the ceiling right now. So it's a great period of time to trade out of these. If you can dissociate yourself from that dream of these players are going to be great, you can get players who are already great. The cat is alive because the cat has already been out of the box for a year or two, and so you can make this move where you don't have to wait to open the box. You don't have to wait to see if you've got a fantasy producer, because you can move it already for somebody who's producing.
Schrodinger would hate that. That's what he's known for. I'm gonna run with that actually, in your little analogy here, and say something apart what you've already said, but there's a little add-on. I don't know. it's a sentence in my head. I'm going to say it. He invented that thought experiment to show how ridiculous that branch of theory was. Like, he's like, look, you have a cat that's both alive or dead. Clearly, your branch of theory is ridiculous. And everyone's like, brilliant, it's true. I'm like, wow, damn it.
But
and that goes to your point. I mean, the cat isn't both alive or dead. You have to act with certainty in a rookie draft. That's why I say I want to take my risk here. Know who you know, or you realize that there's a risk and know the risk that you're taking, but you have to act as if the cat is alive or the cat is dead. And I think that goes to what you're saying. Xavier Worthy is alive, right? Xavier Worthy's life support. He's fine. He's perfectly fine. Brian Thomas is pretty good value, so that's an alive player in this level of value. Neighbors, Harrison, very alive and kicking, already going to college, that's all alive. That kind of thing. And Brock Bowers, alive, not a question mark, not maybe it's another Kyle Pitts situation. It's just that guy's alive. And so I like that part of what you're saying. But I also like the fact that the thought experiment itself was meant to show how ridiculous it is, because the whole nature of rookie drafts, people build all of that in. They're always uncertain, and the real value of any situation is to. I think you do have to act with certainty, but you have to fade other people's certainty for sure. And if you are certain, you have to take a calculated risk for that certainty. Like I'm not taking Rome Odunze any high in the Neighbors or Harrison type value range. I'm not trading that level of value, even though I think he's going to be good and he's a very good prospect. And he's in the same tier as the other prospects that I really like in this draft class. This draft class is, for me, an example of the damage that some terms becoming popular and then people checking in, hearing them, and then acting kind of does in Dynasty. It's a good class. It's a deep class. It's a very wide receiver heavy class. The running backs suck, right? Those are not just good and accurate observations, are actually relatively easy observations this year. Like, it's all kind of written out. And so the certainty that you can fade is there's going to be good running backs, or at least fantasy relevant running backs from this draft class a little bit, and they're falling drastically. Rightly so, but it's a certainty you can fade because you're not snatching some of them instead of going for the deeper wide receivers. Because the other element of those very easy aspects that everyone's telling everyone is it's such a deep class and wide receiver heavy 2014. So not to break it, but the only guy that really fell out of significant ADP in the 2014 class, even if Odell Beckham fell towards the back end of the first, and Jarvis Landry fell into the second, I think, around the second. And Mike Evans was kind of a later first-round pick as well. Everyone took Sammy Watkins earlier. Sure, there's all these mistakes. But the only guy who got past like the 202 was Adam Thielen, who went undrafted. And again, everyone even forgets he's a 2014 wide receiver. You know what I mean? So it's not like the third-round gems or even the late second-round gems were the wide receivers that were paying off. Even in 2014, we were a little bit better than that, even if a lot of people wanted Sammy Watkins 101 and took him 101. I've got Jalen Reagor on my record. I'm not going to point too many fingers. I get it. But it's not like every pick's a hit. And it's not like anything after the first round is a definite, really great bet. So take calculated risks. I want my players by the tiers. And honestly, most of the wide receivers, outside of the names we talk about constantly, you've got Harrison, Neighbors, Worthy, Odunze, Brian Thomas, and then I honestly have almost lost all interest in all of the wide receivers until the other players in my draft start taking other positions, because it's almost a straight wide receiver run from that point on with interspersed quarterbacks and Brock Bowers. And it's another reason Brock Bowers is falling a little bit, because they want to take the quarterbacks, they want to take the wide receivers, and Bowers is falling because he's tight end to the 8 quite often. And that's ridiculous. It's what the cat is alive, and some cats are alive and some cats are dead. Something about this metaphor definitely fits into the exaggeration of those very accurate terms of deep class, wide receiver heavy, and you should take shots at that. And we definitely should. But Leggett's jumping players he shouldn't. And some of these quarterbacks who are mid-tier at best are jumping a generational level tight end prospect in a dynasty league, and even if you miss, it was the right pick. Like, even if it's worse than Kyle Pitts, it was the right process pick, and he's still falling a little bit pretty often. So I like, the Schrodinger's cat thing. I definitely think you could fit the fact that experiment was meant to articulate how ridiculous a notion was to the fact that deep wide receiver heavy is true and yet entirely ridiculous, meant to show how ridiculous it is, if you know what I mean. Sorry, a little bit of a rant, but there you go. Do something good with that. Make that fantasy.
But I also think so. I also think that yes, you've got that wide receiver run right now. By the time, so I see Alan Davis says my draft isn't until no, you're fine. He says my draft isn't until August. Bummer. And by the time Alan gets to his draft, I think you're going to see Jonathan Brooks up there. You may see Trey Benson up there in that where you're talking about that wide receiver quarterback run after Thomas and Worthy and Odunze, where you're seeing Ladd McConkey and you're seeing Keon Coleman and you're seeing Xavier Legette and you're seeing, like Adonai Mitchell, Pearsall, and like Pearsall is interesting because like I had a really like a decent grade on him.
I had a decent grade on most of these guys. Well, not great because that's your thing, but like I don't think they're bad by any stretch. Yeah. But I think they're. Yeah. And
he got draft capital. And the only thing we don't like necessarily about Pearsall is the fact that he's got an offense that has Debo and, like that entire San Francisco offense where you've got everybody and their brother down to Kittle and McCaffrey and Ayuk and Debo. So like, it's going to be really hard for him to carve out a role that is fantasy relevant early. And the future is always nebulous because we think that guys are going to move and we think that T. Higgins is going to be traded and we think that Ayuk is gone and NFL teams have different ideas. So I don't know. It's
just going to be one of those things where I'm hoping I'm wrong because I want these players to succeed as much as anyone. More good players is good, and I like seeing players succeed in the NFL. I really do. But it feels like one of those questions where, like, in 3 years, we're going to be asked, what did we miss? What did everyone else miss on Ladd McConkey? Or what did everyone else miss on Ricky Pearsall? And we're going to be like, nothing. They just said things that weren't things. Like, we said we liked him this way. This is what they did. And then all the content is, he's great. He's going to be the next great thing. But there's no actual analysis there. It's just, I really like him, and he's really good. And look at this route on tape, and look at this random stat. It's like that. Those aren't things. Those aren't accurate representations of how well they fit in the scale of prospects. Right. That's going to be the answer in 3 years. Whichever 6 of the 12 that are really highlighted right now fail, and assuming 6 succeed, which would be as heavy a class as we've ever had. That's 2014. 6 great wide receivers for fantasy at some kind of level. 6 is the max you get, or we've ever had. And that's over a 4-year period, and some didn't break out the first 2 years, and Devontae Adams kind of a career arc, and all of that stuff. After we know all of it, the questions are going to be, what did we miss on Ladd McConkey? I'm like, I don't know. Maybe you didn't look or you didn't listen, because there was lots of hype and lots of, I like this player, I'm the loudest. Remember that I said I'm the loudest, but nothing to actually follow up on. Not this clip, not this highlight, not this one stat. Let's use a stat that compares them to other prospects playing a similar role, like receiving yards per team pass attempt, or yards per route run that isn't per game, but through a certain stretch, but just his overall ability based relative to his volume, the offense he came from. If you look at them that way, they look pretty good, but not fun. It's Roma Dunze is probably a better example. He could hit at the highest. He honestly has that high level in his range of outcomes. It's just the slimmer the percentages get, the further you go up, or the further you go down, the median is good. Yeah, I don't think he's going to be Odell Beckham or Mike Evans. I think he has that potential, and I think he could get close for a little while, but expecting that is way too high for me. So I think there's going to be disappointment, and the question is going to be, what did we miss? And the answer is honestly going to be nothing. You just listen to the parts that you wanted to hear, and that's look how good he is. I'm the loudest. I'm the biggest Odunze fan. And then someone boring like you and me, you talking about your film grade, how he's very good, he does this well, he does that well, many different words I don't understand the meaning of. And me saying, here's his stats, here's his receiving yards per team pass attempt, adjusted for his role and his slot rate, which is fairly good for describing how well he fits in the landscapes of prospects, which puts him here, 75, 75th percentile prospect. Pretty good. I'm really excited. not reaching for the stars with a good profile, not a Neighbors and Harrison like shot of getting up there. And yeah, those are the questions I kind of disappointingly wait for. And again, some of these I'm going to be wrong on. I'm wrong about a lot, which is why I take risk assessments, and I will happily. Again, I like Adunze, I like Pearsall, I like these players, but the value on them and the hype on them, not a real argument. The type of things that are going to wash away in the Twitter streets, and you're going to be like, "Well, they were saying good things. What were those good things? What did I miss?" Well, those good things are like ether. They weren't actually referring to anything. They were just talking good about them, if you know what I mean. And then, yeah, I still get those questions from different classes. It's an awkward question every time people ask about Laquan Treadwell. I'm like, well, you can teach me. What did I miss? I'm like, I can't teach you because what you're listening to is excitement. And like, I can't stop you, but I don't want to stop you being excited. But what else were you using? What was it that really sold you? Because there was nothing there to give him a great chance of being successful compared to the past outside of his draft capital. And so did Philip Dorsett. You know, I mean, you know what I mean? Like that's why I'm muted on this class. It's not that I'm not excited. It's that I can almost feel the what did we miss questions, or why weren't you strong enough about telling me not to like this player that much? I'm like, because I'm reasonable. Like I thought he had a shot. I'm not going to tell you not to like him. But I was lower. Like, that's what I can say. And that's what I said. I can't tell you he's definitely a fail because I don't know that. But I do know the value of him is way too high.
But you always start, though, Peter, regardless of the class, like so down on things. Like we go through this every year that I think there's a good class. If I think there's a bad class, you're like, yeah, there's probably a bad class. When I tell you there's a good class, you're like, no. And then by the time we get here, you're like, all right, maybe it's okay. And when you say maybe it's okay, I'm like, yeah, we're here.
I look for the warts. That's true. Because even in great classes, people took Sammy Watkins 101. People drafted running backs ahead of a Kamara and Christian McCaffrey. Those warts are always going to make the draft itself not as great as the class sometimes.
Right.
So there's some value in just being a little, hey, let's be a little reasonable. That's all I'm saying. And Alan, I was going to say, you apologize for being late, man. You can never be late. We appreciate you turning up. If you turn up and grace us with your presence, that's you doing us a favor, giving us someone to talk to. Like we're just happy you turn up, man. And you're walking your dog. I think that's awesome, even if the weather is a little terrible for you. Fantastic clothing all around this show. Thank you. I'm waiting for my new one, but those links haven't come out. I hear I can buy an Eliminator shirt already, though. So I'm going to investigate that.
I ordered one. I'm working on, I really want to do a running up that hill parody where the opening line is, if I could play in a league with Bosch. Like that, I've got that in my head. If I could play in a league with Bosch. You know, I've got that in my head. But
right. I like it. I gotta say, I'm in at least one league with Bosch, and they're always crazy because they're John Bosch leagues. But he does so much to actually do the league that you feel like he's just the league boss. Like you don't feel like you're playing with. He's got a team and he's doing stuff, and you know, feel like you're in the scrapyard because he's always a teacher. If you know what I mean, he's the guy watching the playground. You're never actually on the playground with Bosch. He's always elusive. That's what
he's standing up on the hill, just looking down at you with his
looking
arms
down
folded.
on the rest of us plebs. But yeah, thanks for stopping in, John. Alan Davis, my draft is in there. We covered that. Zach said that was great. Todd Radmaker, good name. 50% of my yearly trades happen around the draft. Do you actually calculate that? Or is that just a rough guess? Like that's Adam Harstead like analysis. Like he pays attention to his league and actually counts the stuff that happens in his league. I wish I was more that way minded, but I like the big data sheets. But I think that's actually much more useful to kind of pay attention to what actually happens in your league. But you probably just like me guesstimating. True.
For me too, like I keep track. I'm a Leo Pasiga disciple, so I notebook. And so for me, it's who will be excited about once I get halfway through a round next year's pick in that round. So like there are guys that I play with who will evenly swap. So like if I get to like the 307, I can evenly swap my 2025 third with that 307 and just, all of a sudden now I get the 307, I can make that pick. I can go grab Eric All, or I can go grab Kamani Vidal, or whoever it is that I'm interested in grabbing. So
John Bosch, where are you? If you're still here, do you happen to have that Eliminator shirt link? Because I may have forgotten where you posted it or where I could find it, or like I don't know anymore, and I'm probably not gonna find out. Like I check out the Scott Fishbowl website, and I just want that to be a link, like blow your money on shirts here, and it's always too complicated for me. So, but if you happen to have it and you could post it, like. Don't go to any effort. Obviously, you're too busy, and if you're relaxing, it's fine. But like, if you happen to have it handy, like drop it in the chat. That'd be like great.
Are you talking about just the Eliminator shirt? Because that's the right now. I think that's
at this point. Like I've got Scott Fishbowl money burning a hole in my pocket. Sorry, thanks.
So no. So like I think right now the Eliminator is the only one that is available. They've done the pre-sale, like the 3 shirt bundles. They ran those pre-sales, and then eventually there will be a window, but it has to do too with the way that 501c3 with the charity, because you can't just like have them open all year, and you can't have them like, they have to be like specific set sales or the fundraisers, like specific set fundraisers. And we're going to do it for this long. It can't. So like they're finagling in the background, but I can drop the link to the Eliminator one for you, Peter, in the chat. If you give me a minute. You're muted. You look good though.
It's 50-50 with me, John. I might leave. I might give you a minute to find it. I'm pretty cat-like, I might drift off. Might see something shiny and go chase it like a laser pointer. No Schrodinger's cat from The Big Bang Theory. Nice. I enjoyed that show when it first came out, and I watched it with Rebecca and the kids, and we all enjoyed it, and we sang the song. But it's like one of those shows you go back to and realize the people outside of being well acted and funny, like if they were real, they're kind of awful. And I hate that when you go back and you realize you were liking awful people because of the soundtrack and the acting was good. If you know what I mean, the actors made the actual characters more likable. I don't know. It's one of those shows where I look back and I'm like, that guy was just a jerk. Drew Sorensen music. Cade Stover. Am I the only one high on him? No, I keep thinking about that about a few tight ends in this class, but let me finish reading your thing here. All he did was run routes in college, catch balls, and now he's QB is CJ Stroud. All good points. I have a profile of Stover. I had to look a little deeper into him to really see the greatness, if you know what I mean, because he's solid. He's solid. Like I said, he just ran routes, caught balls, like a tight end should, frankly. The only thing about tight ends is we don't know what tight ends should do to indicate they're going to be great, really. And so I'm always looking for a little weirdness, which is why it took me a second on Stover to actually go, hey, look, that's just a good player right there. I like that. But yeah, same with Sanat, who actually got pretty decent draft capital, and I'm like hesitating on drafting him because there's a running back right there, which is a fair choice as well, I think. I think the reason is this isn't the tight end class. We just had a great one. We've got so many great ones relative to normal, at least when it's really just one, maybe two that you have interest. We have 4 or 5 who are like, hey, you could all have pretty good ceilings for the first time in a minute. It's been a while since we had a middle class of tight ends. I've been calling for it for a while. And next to that, decent rookie prospects where, even if they hit a top 12 season, that might not be particularly great. Are just kind of getting lost in the wash. I would definitely recommend you follow this thought up, though. It's good to like Stover. I think it's pretty solid. I think Sanat's pretty solid. I think Eric Hall is a pretty much a steal in most drafts where I've seen him, except when I've been sniped on him earlier in the 4th round from wherever my pick is. I've got Eric Hall every time I have draft capital. and I'm pretty happy with it. But again, I think it's muted expectations. A longer breakout arc, we know we shouldn't really expect someone like Stover to, last year, fella. We liked him.
Laporta?
Laporta, Laporta is the outlier, even in outliers like Travis Kelce, Jimmy Graham, Rob Gronkowski. I don't even remember those two being particularly spectacular year one. Whereas wide receivers and running backs, you can have some expectations year one. In fact, you need some expectations year one. And so that's all getting lost in the wash. But you should definitely value them. Don't worry that there isn't hype. It's just all that stuff that makes it kind of muted, I think. But yeah, again, have reasonable, you're hoping that they can have Tyler Higbee's career as a median, and there's upside, right?
And I think that's
certainly in terms of value. Yeah.
I think that's the issue with Stover. It's not that Stover is a bad tight end, Drew, but it's that he's one of the middle tier of tight ends that don't actually make much of a difference. Even if he hits his ceiling, that's what he is. And he also went to, and I know you spun it as his quarterback is CJ Stroud. He's also trying to carve out a target share in an offense with now Stephon Diggs, Nico Collins, and Tank Dell. Maybe not in that order. Maybe Tank Dell is further up than that. But you've got three really good wide receivers that drive a lot of targets. Now he's fourth banana in that offense. It's going to be really hard. The real difference making tight ends are mostly either the 1 or 2 option in their offense. There's really not if you go down through and look at the top tier tight ends, they are a big part of their offense. They're seeing 100 plus targets. It's going to be really tough to imagine a world where Cade Stover gets the 100 plus targets. Now, that's not to say that he's a bad tight end. I like Cade Stover. I think he's fine. I think he's one of those really steady tight ends. He's a superb effort player. So you're never worried about him in terms of is he going to get it? Is he going to be, have the ability to adjust and make that jump? I think he is for sure that guy. I think he does a really good job blocking, staying on run blocks. He's a very good, quick transition, especially for a tight end. From the time he catches the ball to the time he is running with the ball is very quick. So he adds some yards after catch. I think he does a good job on quick separating routes too, which may not duplicate anybody except for Tank Dell in that offense, where he gets open on outs and slants and curls and crossers and that sort of thing. I do think that he struggles blocking in space. I do think that he tends to get locked up with defenders, even when he's running routes where if a defender makes contact with him, he's I am going to out bully you. And he kind of forgets that he's in a route, and he will sit with defenders in zone. So look, he's a decent prospect. This is another I know you said it's not last year's class. This is a pretty deep, I think, tight end class.
It's a deep, okay. These tight ends could be pretty good tight ends class. Whereas last year it was there was several and it's rare we're interested in one, let alone several. Yeah, all of that checks out with what I found, and it's rare that me and Zach agree, or not this year, actually, weirdly. But the film matches up to the stats who were almost identically on a per-touch basis. I'm talking about how he's above average. His yards per route run is above average. His QB target rating is above average. His catch rate suggests he has really solid hands, 77% catch rate based on where he was getting the ball most of the time. Very much above average. Man can catch a ball better than running back. That's a joke. Don't running backs can catch a ball. But it's all rooted in a lack of volume, which goes probably to some of what Zach was talking about his game as a receiver. His target percentage, if you typical volume stats, is 12 and 13% in his 2 good yards per route run years. So he's effective per touch, but there aren't a lot of touches relative to the team offense. Or if you good stats for rookies, receiving yards per team pass attempt is at 0.9 and 1.4 in those 2 years, which even for a tight end is kind of, that's what a college tight end might do if they're pretty good. But if you're expecting a player to be impressive at the NFL level, you expect them to be even more impressive in college, since it's a lower level no matter where they play in terms of their competition for targets, which isn't how it works, or even the people they're playing. And so some of what Zach was saying about his limitations as a receiver, or what he does as a receiver that isn't receivery, is filtering into this lack of overall volume on the offense. But it's clearly good when he gets the ball, and the team clearly likes him, and he's effective in that role. And none of that spirals into great productive fantasy player at the NFL, but definitely that's a guy that you'll be filling in spots with. He should be a pretty good tight end, and tight ends occasionally score touchdowns, and Stover's going to be one of those guys, at least. I think that's a minimum based just on his profile. What I'd expect for him. So yeah, that's why. But I definitely don't want to wave you off it, because the tight ends and the running backs, but especially the tight ends, are so muted this year in value that it's okay just to like a good, especially where he's going to draft. Like, just take you a Stover. It's okay. You always shoot for upside, but you also don't want to be silly, right? and the chance Stover is something is a lot greater than most of the wide receivers or running backs going around him and going to be something great. So yeah. Drew Sorensen, music again. On that same note, I'm only one down on JJ McCarthy. I'm actually so uninterested in any but the two top quarterbacks. May occupies like this middle spot, and we went back and forward on this last week, Zach. Like, I'm a little more hopeful about the upside, but it's true. I really like the way I think it was Scott Barrett said it, like everyone expecting a player to go to the NFL and then figure out quarterback. That's not the narrative you really want. It's not a developmental league. It's the toughest position in the NFL, or maybe any sport. And although there has been signs of teams taking the time to develop some quarterbacks, it's a pie in the sky type wish. So either they form an offense around his weaknesses, which is what we've seen teams do with other offenses fairly effectively. But, he's never going to be Mahomes or Allen or Hurts, who just kind of have to have the package, if you like, although there's some of gaming for their strengths in there. Or he'll fail, for fantasy at least. And then you've got McCarthy and Nix, and they all just seem like reaches because it's a really important position, and the NFL is increasingly becoming aware of that. I think their mid-range outcomes are fairly decent, but like Zach said last week when I was talking about maybe drafting them ahead of some of the wide receivers, the upside is not particularly impressive QB2. It's fine. And that should be taken into account, I think.
So, Drew, I'm on the kind of the same page where, for me, looking at quarterbacks, I think the NFL and Superflex Dynasty have fallen into the same trap, where good quarterbacks matter, but they don't matter so much that you need to roster bad quarterbacks or that you need to pay up for bad quarterbacks. And so there's
especially when there's some good quarterbacks that people are unsure on right now because of things that changed, like injuries and situation. Just going to throw that out there. I'm assuming you're going to mention some, but yeah.
Well, no, it's just the fact that we're at this point where the value of the good quarterbacks is so high in both the NFL and the and fantasy that people are, and like GMs and fantasy managers are overcorrecting and overspending for. And it's not to say that JJ McCarthy is bad, but everyone's excited about this weird spin up in the draft cycle and the fact that he landed in Minnesota. And to me, he's probably somewhere between Mac Jones and Kirk Cousins, and that doesn't really excite me. If your ceiling is, hey, I got the QB 13, maybe I'm not going to spend a pick that I could have spent on Brock Bowers, who could end up being the tight end 1 at some point in his career.
I mean, the whole reason we've always liked Kirk Cousins in fantasy is because you could get a QB 13 at QB 20 prices. If JJ McCarthy's already been hyped based on that, and Kirk Cousins was a 30th percentile out. He has to reach a bit to hit Kirk Cousins. My joke during the draft was they just spent a lot to go get a guy who might be, his upside is maybe mean 90% of what Kirk Cousins was. Like, that's what they've done.
Right.
But, you know, I didn't mean to say it. Like, I hope he can beat that. But, yeah, I'm not particularly high on Penix and Knicks. It's down from there, you know. So. And finally, on the QB note, projecting week 8 of 2026. No. Because I can't predict literally the first month of the season that's coming, but let's try. Rank May, McCarthy, Penix, Bo Nix. Could Penix be top of that list? Yes, any of those could be top of that list because I don't know the future, especially that far out.
I don't think Bo
My
Nix could be top of that list.
Reflect what I think that a reasonable expectation of their upside outcomes are. So it's May, McCarthy, Penix, Nix. Like, you've got it in the order. Like, that's why my rankings are that way. But there's a little value built into that, but not much. Zach, did you have anything better than that?
No, I mean, I think Penix is being undervalued a little bit because of the stupidity of the perceived stupidity of the Falcons. And so, like, if I were initially going to rank the quarterbacks in this class, I think it would have been, I know it would have been, Daniels and Caleb Williams a lot closer than everybody thinks at the top. And then May, Penix, McCarthy. So the fact that you can get Penix as the quarterback 5 or 6, often 6 in this class, because you have to wait a year or two, and there is an out in Cousins' contract. Okay, so it's not like they're locked into 4 years with Cousins. Like, there is an out in his contract, and he is also coming off an Achilles injury. So, like, it's not as clean cut as everyone at the draft was like, oh, this is a terrible pick. What are they doing with Penix? Like, it's not a great pick. It's not the way I would allocate draft capital, but it's not the moronic pick that people will lead you to believe, where if all of a sudden Penix is starting in 2 years with that offense that has got Bijan still, and whoever else is there, whether Pitts and London, I mean, their contracts will be up, and so there may be some flux, but like, there is a chance that you have a starting quarterback in the mid-second round if you wait a year. Like, that's not terrible. I take that value.
It's the thing that people are reaching up from because they think they can wait that long Jordan Love is the story here. I don't think about Jordan Love. Sure, I will think about the 4th round pick I could have traded to most teams or picked him up off the waiver wire for the last 3 years before he was finally the starter. Like, don't forget that bit. Like, you're going to spend a 1st round pick knowing that he could tank to be worthless on the back end of your roster because you would never drop him to pick up that flavor of running back, which you definitely will, but no, you won't. You're buying into all of that for a 1st round pick as well. Like, that's your expectation for him to hit. And it's all a little much for me. Early second, sure, he's a quarterback in the super flex for the high draft capital. I get it. But you're going to have to be aware of that dip too. We get awful tired and bored, and there are going to be other draft classes with other quarterbacks. And it's almost guaranteed to sustain a significant, maybe not on your roster, but you will never trade him in that case. He's just a dead roster spot until hopefully you get that hit. Anyway, what was I going to say? That was it. I don't think, to put this how I actually would answer it is, I don't think there's a decent chance you're excited about rostering any of those quarterbacks in 2026. Like, some of them might be starters, some of them might be better than others. You might have a different ranking. We might still be arguing about it. I don't think there's a great chance you're excited in even the sense of Jordan Love or Purdy to have them on your roster. It'll be like a quarterback on your roster, like a Goff. You'd be like, okay. Like, I think the only one with decent potential to be an exciting dynasty asset to have in 2026 would be May. And I think the odds are against it. I think there's a reason that he fell a bit. There's a reason a lot of much smarter analysts than me don't like him, and people that watch tape like Zach are like, meh. There's a lot of technical flaws going on here.
Yeah, like
there's reasons for that. I think
Yeah.
if some of that washes away or the offense, but like there's potential that you're excited to have him, but I got to recognize the chances are almost against it at this point, despite the draft capital.
I also think that you're trying to bet on the Patriots getting their act together, and
Yeah, never great. They're gonna do it when you don't want them to. I remember the Patriot code. Draft a running back when you don't think they're gonna be good.
But this is a different. This is a different Patriots organization, but it's the same Patriots organization. And now Jonathan Kraft, who doesn't have any idea what he's doing, has more control, which is awesome.
That's bound to be awesome. What SFB leagues did you guys join? I was actually really excited to pick like my favorite, and I didn't no idea how I was going to whittle it down because I tend to buy the shirt from the league I'm in, so I wanted to pick something that I really liked. And then I got talked into doing the live draft, and there was one option. So I'm in the whatever the main guy's name in Rocky Horror Picture Show, Frankenfurter or whatever. I'm in that league. That's not going to be a fun shirt to wear at work, I got to tell you. But I'm going to buy it. I'm excited to pick other shirts because I tend not to just buy one when there's a lot of good ones. And there are so many good themes this year. And I'm going to want some other ones. Like I had to buy the Simpsons one, even though that was my whole avatar for the last million years has been the Simpsons. So I had to buy that one. But yeah, that's the league I'm in, and it's just because I got talked into doing the live draft. So we'll see how that goes. I'm very excited about getting out of the house. You can tell. But it should be fun. I'm told it should be fun. And yeah. That's it. Zach, you?
I am in the Boston live draft, and I got well, no. So I got Will Hunting, which how do you like those apples? You know, I ended up with a pretty good division. So the only problem is the same as it is every year. It ends up being a division of death, where and this year the Boston live draft is right before the FSGA event in Boston, and so I think Charch is in, Paul Charchian is in my division. Mike, Daddy's Home, Mike Fiala is in that. Bob Gilchrist, Coop a Fiasco. We're just there's so many. So Andrew Cooper, there are so many people in the Boston live, specifically the division that I'm in, that it's just everyone ends up just beating each other to a pulp in the draft, and then we're all mediocre.
That's the story of our lives, really. Drew Brantley, 12-team half PPR, half point PPR, Superflex, no premium. Would you trade Herbert for Daniels and Odunze? I would hold on to Herbert so tightly his wife might, file a restraining order in that particular situation. That's me. Also, Worthy or Kincaid? Worthy for me in that situation. Although Kincaid's interesting. I don't think it's. Is he a late first still? That's pretty good value on him. I'd expect people not to be that sharp, but
I don't want to pay a first for a tight end. I still don't want to pay a first for a tight end. Especially in a non-premium, whatever shrug. He's going to be the guy he's going to be Freiermuth, Peter, where you're like, I want him to be good, and he's he's fine. Freiermuth is actually probably Freiermuth is actually probably the pivot now. You would have had to pay that for Freiermuth for two. Oh yeah.
But I didn't get him that value. I didn't like him to get him at that value. To be fair.
But this year to me feels like a Freiermuth. Hey, the post hype sleeper where you've got Deontay Johnson's gone. They've got a new offensive coordinator. We won't tell you that it's Art Smith, but they've got that going on. I like, and I like what they've done where they added Roman Wilson too. Like I've ended up with Roman Wilson in the mid-second, late second of rookie drafts a lot, like more than I anticipated. But the player was fine. Like he's not a bad player, and the landing spot is fantastic. And he got enough draft capital that you're like, he was a 3rd round pick. They took him 84th overall, and you're like, oh. But like back to Drew's initial question, like I don't know that I'm not as hard set against this as Peter is. Peter is saying take Herbert and run. Like I agree with that, but for the reason that you don't have a sure thing in Daniels and Odunze, and you do in Herbert. Like Herbert is a top 6 quarterback. Like he is an exceptional quarterback. You're hoping Daniels hits the overall ceiling with the rushing, and then you're hoping that Odunze materializes. And both of those players have flaws that you can point to and reasonably conclude that you won't be successful. Not that they won't be, but like you can talk yourself into a scenario where they wouldn't be. And it's a lot harder to do that for Herbert, even though everyone is talking about how it's the Greg Roman offense now, and it's Harbaugh wants to run the ball 6,000 times, and it's still Justin Herbert, and he's going to use Herbert because he's the best asset that they got.
And even if it's down year, like a big part of it for me is I don't QBX because QBX sucks, John. It's more QBXXX, like the 6 quarterbacks, like the really good quarterbacks. I just value at their ceiling until I'm forced to change my mind. Like I just think quarterback is generally, even in Superflex, still undervalued, but in a slightly different way than John Ho with QBX argues. I think the ones that have that elite ceiling are just way undervalued, and the mid tier is kind of a little overvalued, to be honest with you. I like that 3rd tier for that reason, but it used to be the 2nd tier, and that's the 3rd. And so yeah, there's nothing on the Odunze Daniels side that can meet like Daniels. Like, don't tell me you think he has Herbert's XXX level rank. Like, I don't think he has that in his range of outcomes. While Odunze could be great, so he would have to hit Jefferson Chase level to get in that value tier, and I'm just not expecting that. I'm expecting really good stuff, but not Jefferson Chase level value. But maybe I'm wrong on that. In which case it would be a win.
You don't think there is a way for Daniels to be
Justin Herbert, Kyler Murray, Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes? No.
Okay, so. In a hypothetical world, what would have happened if Justin Fields sustained his starting role and his fantasy production, which was like 22, 23 points a game?
Production last year. There's a case we still would have seen the Bortles to it, but I think he would have had to have improved, or the offense would have had to improve. Then he could have got in there, but again, he seemed like
that's the Daniel ceiling.
Did are a little different.
Well, yeah, but you just said he doesn't have that in his range of outcome. He absolutely does. Daniels
technically everything's in technically me being a starting quarterback is somewhat in my range of outcomes. I just think it's highly unlikely.
But Jaden Daniels is an 1,100-yard rusher. Every quarterback to rush for 700 yards ever.
Daniels. I was thinking the Giants guy. Jaden Daniels, yes. Sorry, that's a little
Daniel
different.
Jones?
Yeah, I was thinking. I had Daniel Jones in my head, and I was like, no.
No, Jaden Daniels.
Jaden Daniels get in that range, yes, but then I would default to what you were saying, which is a boat, maybe a boat.
Right. Yep.
You keep the mystery box. Yeah. So I don't know why I did that. I saw Daniel and I was like, no quarterback with that in his name. No. Never. But yeah, he could hurt. But again, I think that's in his range of outcomes, but I'm not betting on someone becoming Jalen Hurts. Oh, actually, I did with Jalen Hurts. And Daniels is pretty close, so that's not bad, but I don't want to have to pay what he could become in order to get it. You're right that Adunze does modify it. The trade becomes a lot fairer in my mind, but it's still boats versus maybe a boats to me. So I think it's still the Herbert side. I know it's still a Herbert side for me, but yeah, it's fine. It's a much better trade. Jeez. For Stover, I legit have him 210 for a 0.5 tight end premium, just below Burton and below McMillan. I'm getting nervous. Like Burton and the other guy you mentioned, like I see them and I get it, but I was so on their profiles that they're not falling anywhere in my ranks. And when I see them, I'm like, that's a guy I meant to somehow get more excited about, but I'm just not picking them up. I'm like running back, tight end, quarterback.
Well,
I'm well past my interest in wide receivers till we get to Thrash and Walker later.
But for me, they got draft capital. Like they got third-round capital.
Yeah, that's the thing. Yeah, it's perfectly valid. It's just kind of a blind. Like I see them, I'm like, I should. Nah, I just pass on it. If you know what I mean, I shouldn't. But.
And like for me with Burton was more like off-field concerns than on-field concerns, and so Cincinnati. And then Cincinnati like spending a third that.
Yeah, I mean, pretty good draft capital. Yeah.
They know more than I do about what the off-field concerns, and the same thing with Roman Wilson, where like the offense in Michigan literally was here Blake Corum, here Blake Corum, here Blake Corum, and so it's underwhelming. Like Roman Wilson was a little underwhelming, but like the things he did well are exactly the things that Pittsburgh needs him to do well. And he went to Pittsburgh in the third. And it's like Deontay Johnson gone. Roman Wilson does that quick separation, slants and curls and hitches. And so in the mid-second, like I'm willing to make a bet on those profiles.
Yeah, like I say, I was so uninterested in their profiles, so it just didn't stand out to me that they're just blanking on them, but I probably shouldn't. But they're pushing other players that I like down the draft board a little bit. That's the main way they're working. It's like Polk. I know to be a little interested in Polk, but I'm just where he's going. I'm like, I just can't get with it. I guess I'm gonna miss out on the new 2014 wide receiver class. I don't know. I'll just have Neighbors and Harris and Xavier Worthy, or maybe an occasional Dunze and Brian Thomas, and that's it.
Yeah, but part of that is because you don't have those picks. Like if you look at the middle of the second and the like that area where it's like Leggett and Coleman and Adonai Mitchell, and then like maybe tight ends, so like Sanat and some of those like underwhelming running backs in terms of draft capital, but good players, so like Ray Davis and underwhelming players who like Jalen Polk, who is an underwhelming player but landed with the Patriots. Troy Franklin, who a lot of the numbers guys liked, a lot more of the film guys are like, that area of a draft. Like I don't mind taking shots on Roman Wilson and Burton. Now for Drew, as far as
that's what I mean about this class. So that's where I'm like, I'm taking the running backs as a wide. Like that's where I have Lloyd, which is probably a little high. Braylon Allen. Like I'm putting the running back. That's again, maybe I'm just a dummy, but I'm letting other people take the wide receiver shots there. And most like I've got Pearsall in that range and Ladd McConkey in that range because they've fallen for me outside the first compared to other people. And then they're already gone when you get there. And so I'm like, oh, the running back, cool.
Yeah, but I've got those running backs over everybody except for those two receivers. So it's literally it's literally Roman Wilson, Jermaine Burton, Pearsall because he got first round capital, and then Corum, Lloyd, Irving, Wright, Ray Davis. Yeah. So I want all those running backs in that area. But if Roman Wilson is there, if Jermaine Burton is there, I still think there's enough to those profiles. But I want to get to Drew's real quick for Stover, where he says he has him at 210 in a half-point premium, just below Burton and below McMillan. But I'm not taking him until the late third. you probably can even go further than that. Like, I don't have him in the first 3 rounds in a 0.75 premium. Like, I would rather have, again, the Sanat. I'd rather have the Jatavian Sanders. I'd rather have Eric All. I'd rather have all of those players that I think have a higher ceiling, even if I miss on them. I would rather take a swing on All, who I think could end up being the top 5 tight end, the difference making tight end. I would rather take a swing on that and miss than draft Stover and hit and have him be tight end 12.
Yeah.
Because
I just want to, before John's really, I don't have enthusiasm for leaving the house, John, but I will try my best to smile when I mention Scott Fishbowl Live. Thank you. Carry on, Zach.
No, I just, to me, if you draft Stover and he is the tight end 12, you're probably not going to fix that position, and you should. But if I draft All and he disappears, if I draft All in the 3rd round and he disappears, then I'll just draft another tight end. I'll keep cycling that position. But if you draft Stover and you're like, look, I have the tight end 12 or tight end 13, now you're really in limbo. You're not actually, if you have the tight end 13, you're actually losing, because there's no advantage. You don't have an advantage over any team in your league. I mean, obviously maybe week to week you have one, but if there are 12 teams in your league and you have the tight end 12, you are losing that position. You just are losing it.
And you can stream, even in Dynasty, most teams have some system of streaming a quarterback if they don't have an elite one. I know I do and I don't. And so living the stream is alive and well in Dynasty, and you can stream the tight end 7 without having a Stover or a Higbee or any of those guys. That's the problem with it. It's a problem with the position. One value lesson on hype versus value versus should versus could. Try trading Evan Ingram right now in Dynasty. No one wants him. I mean, people will hype him. I'm happy to have him, but sometimes I want to use his value for something else, and he just doesn't have it. That would be Stover's top range of outcomes to be anything like the 2 seasons we've got to have Ingram that were any good, and he's still almost valueless in Dynasty. He's not, but try getting it out in a trade. Is a little tougher than you might expect, unless you've got someone in your league that's like me, I secretly know the value. It's actually pretty hard. And that you're looking at the ultimate range, pie in the sky range of what Stover could be. Baker Kid 2, 12-team best ball, PPR, 0.5 tight end premium, start 11. Would you give CMC for either of the following packages? JSN, Rice, and a second, a concern, whole range of different concerns, and a second, or Ayuk, somewhat of a concern, but we have positive hopes and more concern in Rice. No. I mean, potentially, it's all about my team situation. If my team is anyway competitive, I want CMC. If you're not legitimately in the top 5, no one in your league would question your top 5, not just your feelings. No one in your league would look at the team and think it's weird that you think you're top 5. Then there's definitely a chance right now to get out for a wide receiver. I think you're trading for a little bit too much more, maybe. If you're doing that, though, I think the most solid package is Ayuk, JSN, or Rice, and I would probably take JSN. But I still don't think it's enough for CMC, even if I'm trading because I'm not solidly in the top 5 of my league, top 4, top 5. I'm guessing that's about the same for you, Zach. I think I hit that one out of the park. I think I did pretty great there.
Yeah, you hit it. It's just not quite enough for CMC, especially if you're
even
competitive,
when building and you're tempted to do it. It'd be
if you're building, part them out for picks. Find a team that's got a first in this draft and 2 firsts in 25, or 2 firsts in this draft and a first in 25, and do that. I would rather have the fungibility of the picks, the ability to turn the picks into players that I want, than get stuck with, JSN and Rice and a second, or Ayuk and JSN, or Ayuk and Rice, because there are a finite number of teams that are going to be interested in those players in your league. There are going to be 12 teams interested in picks.
And again, just to be real clear on this, process-wise, the first pick is an outright no. You shouldn't be considering that type of trade. And it's not because we don't like JSN or Rice didn't do well last year and his legal troubles, we don't know yet, but probably balance out to being okay generally for fantasy. It's that there is a legit, at least, if not better than 50% range of outcomes where you are holding nothing but a running back in the second round of 25 who does nothing for CMC. Like, that is all risk right there. There's nothing solid, nothing definitely easy to trade come any point in time in the future. Why would you trade like a top tier asset, even if it's an aging running back, for that? The second one is slightly potential because at least you've got Ayuk. You've got a couple good years of Ayuk there, value-wise, maybe even more than that, production-wise, because he's a solid receiver in the NFL and an exciting franchise. And then you've got more risk. So it's definitely not enough, but just to show the difference between the two, like these are not even for that type of asset that you're trying to trade. And you should definitely more towards the second type of trade. Like if that's Ayuk and Pittman, it's still not enough, but I could maybe, if that's the best you could do, talk myself into it because you got two solid, definite things that are pretty nice and could have up years this year, and suddenly we're rolling with more value. Or if that's Ayuk and a first, like in the top 6 this year and a super flex. Was this super flex? Maybe you could start saying if that's the best you can do, maybe we can do something with Bowers. But you're still low. Like trade CMC like his elite. Find the teams that are the most competitive because they're the ones that should be valuing him like he should be valued. And look what they have. And that's the type of way I'll go thinking about making a trade for yourself. And again, if you're top 5, just keep CMC. You know, it's an impossible thing to replace. Joanna? Joe.
Joe,
Hi,
it's
Zach.
Joe.
Hi, Pete.
Really? It's Hi, Joe.
She is on fire in a picture, so you know brevity is probably for the best. Why not? Why can't Daniels have a Kyler season?
See?
He can. I was doing something
but
weird.
Daniel Jones can't.
Daniel Jones definitely can't. I was a little confused there. I was like, Daniel Jones rushing? He's okay rushing. Maybe I'm forgetting. Is Penix the best value in the early second? Depends how you measure value, all that type of crap. I don't think so. No. I think his value is going to, for at least a couple years, and that's got to be measured in. You can hold him at that value because he's on your team, but also means you won't be able to trade him for anything if you need to, because we're not. The whole idea of value is that your team's trying to give and constantly renew value. The idea. You play a little differently than I do, Joe, but Dynasty to me is a game of value. And you're trying to play where I'm going to make this bet here, and at this point here, I hope to have something that is better, rather than more valued. Even in that, why take Penix? There's much more chance that one of those running backs and wide receivers does something that's more immediately good for your team over the next 3 years. So no, I don't think that way.
Well, so but the other side of that coin though, Peter, is because
there is a if it Jordan Love's. Sorry, yeah,
no, it's okay, but because Dynasty has the thought and the we're pushing quarterbacks up, and we're even pushing bad quarterbacks up. We don't know that Penix is bad. We won't know that Penix is bad this year. We probably won't know that Penix is bad next year. So you still have the potential to move him for at least the second, maybe a first, depending on the draft class. And you can shake your head all you want, but you absolutely can in a lot of leagues that I play in, Peter, because backup quarterbacks go for a late first, early second, which is what you paid for Penix this year. So I don't think you lose any value. I don't think Penix is the best value, but I do think there is value in drafting Penix there. I think probably Trey Benson has potential to be the best value in that range because I don't see as much of a gap between Brooks and Benson as a lot of people do. And I think Benson sitting in an offense with Connor isn't a bad place to be. I mean, if you're talking about potential injury or potential like workload, I don't mind Arizona as a place to be.
I was gonna go looking, and then I realized my coloring was off, and I'm obsessive, so I gotta fix that. Give me one thing in here. Okay, so using consensus ranks for ADP, which isn't ideal, but I actually think it's as good as anything else, especially right now, for what might happen most often in most leagues. I think the consensus of what 12 pretty good dynasty players thinks about the same as what 12 pretty good dynasty players in your league might think. The early second right now is Lad McConkey, Ricky Pearsall, Xavier Leggett, Trey Benson, Keon Coleman, and then Michael Penix. So it does look like a pretty good potential value, to Zach's point, in that range. Trey Benson, where is he? He is good. Trey Benson is probably the one that stands out to me there, though. The running back two, going right there in the exact same reasonable spot, pick 16 overall. Much more likely to do something earlier in the next 2 years. Yeah, I would take the running back in that range over the quarterback, given the situations. And I ain't taking these wide receivers. Although I would say any positive result in the rookie season of Lad McConkey is going to send that value for those people that like him to the moon, right? So there's a potential that Lad McConkey he's a pretty good player, damn it. At least on a per touch basis. He's going to do stuff with Herbert, right? It's Herbert, right? Pretty good quarterback he's got. And that's going to excite everyone that's already really excited about him. So there's probably a really good peak there for Lad McConkey as well. I'll probably say running back too, but there's an argument there. Or Pearsall, if you want to make that same argument. But I think Lad McConkey is probably the easier one to make it for. 12-team half-point PPR. Oh, wait. Oh, shit. Pardon me. I've got those inflatable waving arm guys? Like Carlots and stuff. There's one down here.
Hey! I was being there for like 3 minutes before you noticed me.
I've been in the show an hour and 15, and he hasn't noticed me yet. So,
Zach, there you are.
Yeah, no shit.
Ross, how you doing?
Well, I'm
Twice
tired
in a
now.
row. What have we done?
Trish had to has an early morning, so she's sleeping in the city tonight. So I put my kids. I'm going downstairs. Leave me alone. so kids are in bed.
Nice.
To totally just jump on the conversation you just ended. We have, as of yesterday afternoon, we had 5 finished Trade Addicts rookie drafts, and Michael Penix Trade Addicts ADP is the 202, the pick 15.6. He was drafted as early as 14, as late as 17. So not really.
What are your thoughts though about retaining value and because we're not going to see him, so he still has that is he a boat potential.
Well, I mean, I get that the parallel isn't exact, but I mean, we should treat this like Jordan Love, where they spent the capital that the dude's going to start eventually. But remember what happened to Jordan Love? His value tanked.
That's what I'm saying. If we're playing that arc out, all I want to say is if everyone's gonna say that now, I want them to show me sending a very early second in next year's class for Penix this time next year. If they would do that, then sure, his value held for you in that league at least. And I think most people will be like, yeah, but I don't have to now. And that's the whole point. that's my concern on his value. Even to the people who think it probably are going to think they have to by this time next year because we didn't see him. We're not going to see him. Yeah, we probably shouldn't see him.
We know what we're getting into. At least with Aaron Rodgers, he was old and it seemed like he hated being there. So we always thought the next year was going to be it. We know that the Falcons are kind of stuck for 2 years on Cousins. And so we are waiting till year 3, most likely. Like I forgot if I brought this up last week, what Ocho Cinco said. You know, the coaching staff immediately said Kirk Cousins does not need to look over his shoulder after every bad throw. And Ocho Cinco just goes, wrong. Yes, he does. Because that crowd is going to start screaming Michael Penix's name, and they're not going to have a choice, and they're going to have to. I still don't buy that. You know, more than anything, they're paying that man too much money to sit on the bench. So, like, I think we're going to have Cousins for 2 years, and like, it's a second in super flex for a quarterback that we think is going to start. Like, Jordan Love never really fell below a second round value, even when he wasn't going to start. So Penix doesn't have that far to fall. We know.
I don't think you can get that out of him unless you're the guy holding that value, and then you're rostering him. So you can't give the second to yourself.
It was the same thing with Love. It's the same thing with a lot of these assets, which we're waiting for something to happen. Is you're never usually going to 1-for-1 swap. You're not going to say, I'm going to take that 202 for Michael Penix, even though I just drafted him with the 202 last year. It's going to be, I'm going to give you this and Michael Penix for that better asset. Like, that's usually what these kinds of assets are for.
And I think valuing him there is going to be like a no.
Anyway, you know, like what any pick is to Zach besides a first. It's just a trade chip to increase the value on your side.
So, Peter, I don't
think it increases the value by as much as it would right now. Like, I think it's going to drop.
Here's the problem, Peter, is you're thinking about this rationally, and most people who are playing this game are not. And so, like, you're sitting there going,
but you're saying I'll be able to do something irrational in a year, and I'm like, you absolutely don't draft like that.
You should not draft him in the
like maybe I'll be able to do something I shouldn't be able to in a year. I mean, maybe I can trade Jefferson for a stone. I don't know, maybe.
With a second round,
extreme, you know what I mean?
How many? And I know the answer to this because the answer is 4. How many second round picks will have a second round value in 3 years? The answer is 4, but one of them could be Michael Penix, and he's got a better chance because he's not going to play.
Question: where's this 4 number coming from? Is that like something you
25%
read or? Oh, is that 25%? Just like the hit rate?
Yeah, that's the hit rate.
Okay, just curious where that came from.
Yeah, no, that's the hit rate in the second round. So like you're not going to do better than that, huh?
I'm surprised it's that high.
Yeah, right.
I honestly thought like by the time you hit the end of the first, it's 25, and it would probably get lower by the time you're in the second. But that's still pretty great, honestly. Like I thought it would be lower. I do love the second round this year. I find myself very happy in the second round.
Will be more tradable than Penix this time next year. That's all I'm saying. Drew Brownlee, 12-team half-point PPR Superflex, no premium. Ayuk for Kincaid and Jaden Reed. I'm not that interested in Jaden Reed. This doesn't change anything.
I am.
Ayuk side.
So I'm starting to really sell myself on this one tweet I saw a couple of weeks ago, where like there's a massive drop off in guaranteed money or dead cap or whatever it is. Debo is very tradable after June 1st.
Yeah.
And I think that's what's going to happen. I think Debo is going to get moved. The question is, well, it's not even a question. Pearsall is not close to a 1-to-1 playing style of Debo. So the question really becomes, what's this offense going to be without Debo?
Worse.
And is it, well, first of all, I love that for Ayuk because it might just be the Ayuk show because Kittle's.
I like it for Kittle, but Ayuk, I mean, it does.
So, like,
I think worse hurts, but they do have Kittle, so it's not like he can drop off a cliff. To be fair,
he won't be completely gone. Like, that's really what this trade comes down to: is what you think of Ayuk. If you think Ayuk is a top 12, 15 wide receiver, this is easily Ayuk to me. I love Jaden Reed, but the truth is, Green Bay looks like they want to spread the ball around. Like that just seems to be the offense they run, and that's the skill set of the play. Like they don't have
that's the limitation.
They don't have an Ayuk. They don't have a guy like the guy there.
No, they do not have a wide receiver.
And I was never that into Kincaid, and I don't love the landing spot. And honestly, like I would like Kincaid more if they drafted Worthy. But they drafted a tight end who plays wide receiver. So, like, that's a little worrisome for Kincaid for me. Like, I would take Ayuk here because I do believe he will produce that much more than Jaden Reed will. And I'm fine with Kincaid's replaceability as a top 10 tight end, which he is. Don't get me wrong, absolutely a top 10 tight end, but that doesn't super mean much. So like I'm good.
I don't
with
even
my
have to see that upside. Sorry,
Like,
I'm stupid.
No, like again, this trade is fine value wise to me.
I don't think so.
I would prefer Ayuk.
I think in a year, it's more than likely Ayuk is the only thing that you start on a regular basis or expect to start ever again. So why would I consider that equal value? Like I don't expect Kincaid's upside is one of those top 12s we were just talking about. I think honestly, but a really good one because he's got draft capital or whatever. So he might have more name recognition. And Jaden Reed is just another on a long list of talented, not high volume receivers that are barely startable as a flex spot if he hits his upside. For me, that's what I expect as a median. And Ayuk, I don't have to see top 12 upside to see that. For me, he's higher value than both of those things combined, probably with a first.
Yeah. See, the problem with the amount of wide receivers that are, I know next year is not the greatest year, but the amount of wide receivers we've been getting in, and it seems like that will probably just keep rolling in, except for next year. It's going to be harder and harder for the guys we expect to be great but haven't shown it to keep their value. I think a lot of people are getting much quicker willing to drop wide receivers into that bowl of replaceable wide receiver production. And I think people have Ayuk there already. I don't, because I believe in the player, and especially if Debo leaves, like this really might be the Ayuk show. And I'm here for it. It's not really the Shanahan offense to do that, but like they haven't done enough to make me think that it won't be. But again, like a lot of it is how you feel about these players. And if you feel like Peter does, then you're right. You don't think this trade is even. I think it is because I think all these players are good. I think all these players are startable.
Oh, you're good at trading. You'd be able to find a window for Reed and Kincaid. I think you would have to be active with those assets to keep that value because the chances both pay off. Like Ayuk, going to be slimmer for most people, right?
Yes, you aren't trading for Kincaid.
I think it's also a matter of how we play. I know I'm not going to be able to move players as easily at the right times or for value or whatever.
You're getting Kincaid and Reed to put in your lineup. Like this isn't a Kincaid and Reed are going to go up in value so I can move them later. That's not going to happen unless something good happens during the season, which of course is always possible. But you're trading for these two players because you like these two players and you want these two players in your lineup. Like that. That's why you move Ayuk, because Ayuk is the one who has the chance for his value to go up and for you to move him this offseason if you want to. Or
well, in that case, I cement my feet in the take of. I don't want to trade for these two players expecting to be able to start them for 6 games out of a whole season, let alone an entire season.
I'm starting those two players every game this season.
No, I don't. I mean, maybe I'm rooting for him.
Look, you're talking to a guy who rode Jaden Reed to 126th in Scott Fishbowl last year.
That's true. People do score more when they know they're on your roster. I strongly believe that. Like Russ is depending on me. I gotta put on my gameplay.
They just started that this year in Scott Fishbowl, though. Everyone was late to the memo because the year before, when I finished like 1200th, then no one was really on that bandwagon just yet.
You're right, though. That's an interesting thing. It's part of what I want to look at breaking down when I move into NFL analysis, because I think of it as a different thing. A couple years ago, we're in a phase where my biggest headache on fantasy Twitter was arguing that the number 24 doesn't get bigger just because you like more guys. Like there are only top 24 top wide receivers. Like stop it. There aren't so many. There are only 24. Like that was like proving the number was 24 was only 24 long was my hardest task on Twitter. Like it's like proving that the word outlier means a specific thing, not whatever you fucking want it to mean.
That word.
At any given time. So like that used to be my headache. And you're right. We're entering in that era where we like so many because so many new ones have come along to like, and no one wants to cut their darlings. Faulkner, right?
So
we think there's a lot, and we have always kind of had more than top 24 wide receivers because we like wide receivers. Let's face it.
Yeah.
But it's been trimmed enough that it's been reasonable. And I think you're right. We're heading to that point where there are 50 wide receivers that people call starting top 24 wide receivers, and wide receiver so deep is going to become a thing again. I think I don't know if you meant to, but you're cotton on to a thing that I think is going to. I think that's going to affect the way we play Dynasty and the value of Dynasty players as well. Like I can get a 36 flex play in Gabe Davis and McCall Hardman type players is going to become popular for the running back heavy market again, because there's going to be 50 wide receivers elevated because they're all top 24 wide receivers somehow. If you know what I mean?
Yep.
Yeah, I think we're going back there. I think we're cycling right back to that place where I lose my mind trying to prove 24 is only 24.
Actually, that just makes me happy because that's wide receiver happy place.
Yeah, I get to value all of them as if they're good. Yay!
Can we caveat this though with the proliferation of that Shanahan offense is really good for multiple wide receivers, and so the more Shanahan offenses you have, the more offense you have, which means the more good wide receivers. Even though you only have 24 top 24 wide receivers, you still have a deeper pool of good wide receivers. And like we're not there yet.
Arguing that the players valued later can score like that about the same percentage of, and so they become the actual values. You know? And
it will be, I think it's going to get bigger and better until teams account for the Shanahan offense and we have that shift back away from. But like right now, it is fast, multiple sets. It is getting guys in motion. It is like Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill were like 2 and 8 or 9 in the success rate on motion versus man coverage. Like just like ridiculous. Like they're just moving all the time in the formation. And that is a successful way to play. And I know that it's Tyreek Hill and Waddle, but like again, if every draft class has 4 or 5 guys that are that type of player, which we have for the last 5 classes, like man, we're at a point where it's really fun. And I don't think it's by accident that you see that happen with the Rams, that you see that happen with Miami, that you see that happen with San Francisco, because those are the Shanahan team, and NFL's the NFL has gotten smarter, and they've started hiring Shanahan disciples, and so there are going to be more.
I guess my fantasy point, maybe I'm not making it clear, is I actually think that devalues the position. It becomes more like tight end. When the wide receiver 15 isn't that much different than the wide receiver 33, what's the point in having the wide receiver 15 valued significantly high? I think it devalues the position and increases the value, like at tight end, of the very tippy top.
Right.
Which is why Debo's still interesting to me, because he scores up there every night when he's healthy, you know? And Ayuk could, but he could have... And he should definitely be in that top 15 range, and he has for stretches. And Pittman could, but he's normally in that 15 range. But again, I think it devalues a larger portion of the wide receiver market when we enter that. We'll call it the Shanahanning of the NFL. I guess I don't know what was causing it.
A new use of the word Shanahanigans.
Yeah, right.
It used to be running backs. Now it's wide receivers. I love the generational change in the. I love it.
We're overcoming the generational trauma. We've transitioned away
and we're
from running backs.
Apparently.
Yeah. Although he does do fun things with the zone scheme and the running backs and like letting fast guys be fast, which is fun.
Yeah, I mean, but that's a family trait. That's what they've done. Yeah.
Also, would you rather have Bo Nix or Jonathan Brooks in that format?
Brooks. Not even close.
Yeah.
I have
not even in the same round.
I'm loving the end of the firsts right now in Superflex leagues. But I mean, well, I have nothing to do with quarterbacks, but this is where they fall. Of Worthy, Thomas Jr., Brooks, and Benson.
Yeah, that's how we started the show.
Guys are all over my teams, and when I miss them, I'm trading for them after they get drafted.
I traded into the early second to get Thomas because he fell. Yep. That's not a thing I do. Trading up to get a late round one.
Hold on, tell him he went and he bought on credit.
I bought on credit. I did a Zach. I was like, what would Zach do? Read my little secret little armband. What would Zach do? I went and read my notes that I got from donating Fantasy Cares. I was actually just rereading the Tez Walker one because I drafted him in the fourth somewhere, and I need to be re-encouraged about a Baltimore wide receiver. And yeah, this is pretty good. This whole narrative is getting spun over here. But yeah, I traded up Thomas in my Patreon league, so it better pay off, guys. I'm gonna be mad at you two.
I said it to Zach. I think it was a text, or so it wasn't like on the show last week. So I'm just repeating myself. Not player comp wise at all, but I am feeling with Worthy and Thomas Jr. like I did with Devonta and Waddle. And I don't want to fall into the same trap I did. I had a player I liked more. I liked Devonta better than Waddle.
And he's just,
yeah. At first, I liked Worthy better than I did Brian Thomas Jr. So I was drafting Worthy, and then I'm like, wait a second. I'm not falling for this again. So now I'm getting both of them everywhere I can. I love those two wide receivers at the end of the first. And that's the only correlation, because Devonta and Waddle were like the 10 and the 11 in their rookie year.
I've been doing I have to do the opposite thing. I keep JJ Arcega-Whitesiding myself because I remember liking wide receivers at the end of that first round, and forever after I would never do that. But I keep having to remind myself that's not a guy that I think's these are wide receivers that are up here that are falling. That's different. That's different, Pete. This is different. And that's how I keep having to encourage myself. It's not, I won't get JJ Arcega-Whiteside again. Never again.
No, that was different because we knew JJ Arcega-Whiteside wasn't good at the moment. We were drafting him in the first time. And he could turn into something, and it never came. And he was the wide receiver version.
He was a little touchdown dependent. Right? I knew he should be a late first is the thing, whereas Worthy and Thomas, I think, could arguably be higher than that.
He was literally Karl Malone.
I've done this conversation a lot in my head. I'm sorry, carry on.
Arcega-Whiteside was Karl Malone. He would go out and he would post up, and that's it. That's his route.
Right, but how good was Karl Malone back in the day? If only Carson Wentz was closer to John Stockton, we'd have a Hall of Famer on our hands. So clearly it's Wentz's fault and not JJ Arcega-Whiteside. So there you go, Peter, because I was all in.
I knew I wasn't wrong.
It is not our fault. It is all Carson Wentz's fault.
It's never our fault. It's just the way reality unfolds. Fun. Sorry, we've got other stuff. I should probably click. Any hope for Jalen Tolbert this year? I wish I could say yes. I wish I could say yes for the last few years. But again, we're well outside the arc of careers that I tend to try and track these days. I liked him as a rookie, but I'm all done. Sean Tucker, he's a running back. It's a little different. I guess there's always a spot, but I don't have a particular reason to think so.
Neither. The opposite of the El Dorado GIF. Neither. Neither's good. You said Jalen Tolbert, and my brain went to Tolbert, the fullback that used to be on the Chargers. And I'm like, wait, why are we drafting that guy still?
Oh, no. See, I hear Major League, the beginning of Major League, where Jake is in the Mexican League, and he's got ice on his knees, and he's in bed, and the phone rings. He's like, is that you, Tolbert? That's all I can hear.
I remember the scene. I don't remember him saying that.
Yeah, when they call him to be a Cleveland Indian, and he's like, if you're messing with me, at least you could have said you were with the Yankees.
That joke still lands the same.
Joe wants to know from Zach, and only Zach. Okay. If Rashid Ali has real upside to be the 1A in the Ravens backfield next year. So let's get rid of Zach from the screen, and we'll ask me and no.
Okay, bye.
No, we'd actually rather hear a good answer. So.
Fabulous
Yeah, so I really like Rasheen Ali. Now, the chances of him taking over that backfield are probably a little bit slimmer than I would like to admit. But I think Rasheen Ali is one of the better runners in this class, which I know that it was later round capital, and I know that you don't have to draft him until the 4th or 5th round. We're not having to go out of our way to get Rasheen Ali, but for me, he was running back 6 pre-draft. Now he's fallen a little bit post-draft. You don't have to draft him like he's the running back 6. Same with Ray Davis. I think they're talented. Rasheen Ali was spectacular. As a sophomore at Marshall, he ran 256 times for 1,400 yards, 23 touchdowns, caught 45 passes for 334 yards. Like, he can do everything. He makes quick decisions behind the line of scrimmage. And when he makes those decisions, he goes. He is very good at the second level and in the open field. He's got great vision, kind of uses those angles to get away from people. He has that lightning strike long speed where, and like, I really wanted him, and we just talked about Shanahan offenses. He's perfect for that. He's perfect for the offense that runs that gap scheme and lets him go, which you saw several times this past year. Dobbins not quite be able to get all the way to the end zone. Rasheen Ali's going to score that. Like, he will, and Lamar Jackson makes him better. And even though he's a little undersized, I think he can run inside. There are some things like he is driving on racing slicks is one of the things I said about him, where like at speed, he doesn't cut very suddenly. So he makes really quick cuts before he's accelerated, but once he's gone, not so great. Is inconsistent. I've driven Peter off with tape. Did you see that?
I saw he rolled his eyes, he threw his hands in the air, and he stormed off.
Absolutely. Is inconsistent. I think sometimes he's brilliant and sometimes he's brutal, but when he's brilliant, it's like touchdown brilliant. And I do think that ball security is a little bit of an issue. Even though he like goes into contact with two hands, he goes in and like extends his arms up.
He's afraid to take the hit in the body. And
I think he's trying to deliver a hit, but at 5'11", 204, you're not delivering a hit. You're giving them a chance to knock the ball out. But I really like Rasheen Ali, and I like where you can get him. And yes, there is, and again, like the chance of that happening, not great. But if he gets a role, he's going to be spectacular in it, I think.
Well, what about Rasheen Ali or a healthy Keaton Mitchell?
I still would take Rasheen Ali.
Okay,
and I know you've seen Mitchell do it some, but like I still think Rasheen Ali is the better player there.
Yeah, like it's funny. Like, I know nothing about Keaton Mitchell except he's fast. Like, that's, and especially against the other running backs they had in Baltimore, it just made him look faster. Because like you said, it made me so happy to see J.K. Dobbins like starting to run a little better for a little while. But yeah, he was not fast. You know, Gus Edwards, not fast. But then Keaton Mitchell gets on the field and so like it made him look so much faster. But so that's I was legitimately asking. I didn't know the answer. Oh, so Rasheen Campers, Mike Tolbert. I couldn't think of the guy's name.
Rasheen Ali coming into college ran a 4.40 flat 40. He is a track star. Like literally is a track star. And so like he's got that high end speed, even though he didn't run at the combine and he didn't run at the Senior Bowl because he tore his biceps at the Senior Bowl. Oof. Which I think is part of the reason why he dropped in the process. Like he had a great first day or two of practice and then hurt himself.
That sucks. So yeah, poor kid.
So and again, like he's like Joe, I'm talking about him like he's fantastic. He's still like the traditional sleeper. Like he's not a go get him and he's definitely going to be the guy. We're hoping, but like I think that if he gets a path to touches, he is more than capable of fantasy production.
Yeah, I didn't understand most of those words, so I just kind of zoned out. It was like a field, touches. Sounded good though.
Now you know how we feel when you start talking for a long time,
right? I didn't like the role reversal. I didn't. Any idea on what wide receiver or picks or not I should trade Kyler for? We're talking about a super Kyler because I don't think you should, or you should at least be trading for a top 7 guy. Yeah.
Kyler, to me, equals top tier wide receiver. Like if you're selling Kyler for a wide receiver, I want Jefferson or Chase, and you're not going to get them. Like Kyler Murray had his worst statistical points per game year last year, recovering from an ACL injury at QB 10. He's really, really good.
Be
And
excited
he just
for
got
their
Marvin
upgrade.
Harrison Jr. Like, if you don't like him, you still doesn't matter. You need to hold. You need to get the value of let Kyler become a top 5 QB again, because he should be.
I think so. If you just band and determine, you're looking at CD Lamb plus a first. I don't know you're going to get any trade I would consider it good.
You'd be lucky to get CD Lamb straight up right now. Like, from what I've seen for Kyler's value, and that I would not. I would.
But that's where, like, you're gonna need to get
one QB. If we're talking one QB, that this is a very different story.
Yeah.
But my brain goes straight to Superflex when anyone talks about trading a QB. If it's one QB,
well,
I'll take any top 12 wide receiver.
And I think Joe plays a lot of like FFPC, so
Yeah,
I do think it's Superflex. So
yeah, I don't know. I know she plays high stakes. I just don't know.
Yeah. And so like you're gonna need a Lamb, you're gonna need Amon-Ra St. Brown,
You're gonna need
like,
a Kyler.
Yeah. So
yeah. I basically no picks this year. I am struggling through the same thing, Paul. I got a few picks here and there, but honestly, I kind of like the depth of this class. No, seriously, some of those running backs and some of those wide receivers I actually like deeper for, and even maybe Eric Orr deeper. Some of the tight ends like that. I'm still finding interest in my rookie drafts, but yeah, my most of my rookie drafts are starting in the 3rd round. Most of my comments in my group DMs are must be nice when someone's on the clock, because I'm passive aggressive like that, Paul. But yeah, I'm right there with you. But occasionally you can execute a trade by something I'm coining and coming up with for the first time, buying on credit by using a.
That's brilliant. Explain this.
Should I start working the waiver wire to make the bottom of my roster better? I would just let the rookie draft play out there, Paul. I think they logged during the draft anyway. But yeah, I'm with you.
So, Paul,
what you can do. What I would basically.
What I would do though is see if you can work trades, and we talked about this at the beginning of the show. Work trades around the draft. They don't have to necessarily be for draft picks, but everybody is plugged in right now. And you can make moves, while everybody is in. And the other thing I would do is, as soon as the draft is over, I would go look through the rookie, like what's left, and see if there are players that you want to add to your roster, because there may be.
Yeah, for sure. But yeah, like in Dynasty, like, and my leagues that I create have very larger sized rosters, which kill the waiver wire, and that's on purpose, because my leagues are based on trading, not on the skill of waiver wiring, because A, I don't have that, and B, I prefer trading. But usually in a Dynasty league in general, you're not really super improving your team through the waiver wire, unless we're talking the running back that gets signed off the couch right before the playoffs. Like, that's really what the waiver wire in Dynasty is for, or the backup quarterback that nobody thought to roster, like Jake Browning. Nobody had him on their rosters, and then Burrow gets hurt. Like, that's what the wire is in Dynasty for me. I completely blanked on the first 5 TA leagues that rolled over after the draft and a waiver started, and I did not place a single bid. And I honestly looked through and I didn't care.
The first week of the season. I actually broke this down once, and there are some that happen later in the season, like Russ was just mentioning. Some injuries happen, some players come up just naturally, but by and large, you should not have much of your waiver wire budget left after the first 4 weeks of the season. It's a go big and go home kind of a system. Again, hanging on to some of that money sometimes can pay off, but it's not really worth relying on. So, and right now, like Russ is saying, you're still just taking random shots and hoping to hit one of those guys. So the first 4 weeks are where you're looking at the waiver wire at best.
Yeah, I love when people put in a trade offer like it actually means something to me. Yeah. I'm just like, what? What's 20? Like, my leagues are $200 budgets, and someone offers me $20 of fab, and a third for something. I'm just like, what?
So
Why?
you can definitely secure that kicker that you want that 1 week.
What? Yeah, like I'll allow kickers just so I can go spend that $20.
But if Penix plays 1 game due to injury this year and does well, won't his value skyrocket? Potentially, but then you're just looking at a Trey Lance situation.
Nope.
It's just a window. But
We
again, I
are-
mean, yeah, sure, maybe.
It's
It's
the
a
problem.
Predicting injury.
The problem here, it will skyrocket for the people who have Penix on their roster. People won't move him once that happens. But his value shouldn't and wouldn't change based on one game happening out of nowhere. Don't forget what Will.
And again, Penix isn't a type of player. I correct me if I'm wrong. You're the QB of geniuses. I don't think Penix is the type of guy who gets on the field and puts up 40 points in a game. Like that's not the player we're expecting from Penix, right?
I mean,
he's not a runner, if that's what you mean. Like,
so here's the thing, Peter. If Penix throws 1 ball in the flat to Bijan Robinson and that goes for 75 yards.
It's a touchdown
and a touchdown. And then he throws 1 ball to Pitts and Pitts sheds 1 defender. And all of a sudden that's a 50-yard touchdown. Like, I know you're sitting there doing the like Peter thing where we can't hypothetical. We absolutely this is what Joe's talking about. Like, it literally takes 1 game where Penix throws for 250 and 3 touchdowns, and everyone goes, Michael Penix is who we thought he was. He's Jordan Love, but better. And Cousins is almost done. And like, it doesn't take very long. And they're going, oh, look, he's got Pitts because everybody wants Pitts and London and Bijan to succeed. So they want Penix to succeed. There's going to be this whole zeitgeist of like people wanting Penix to succeed. Like, that is well within the reasonable expectations of a reaction to a Penix blow-up game.
Yeah, I completely agree with all of that. The reason I'm Peter Howarding, as you say, is one, you got to have that perfect game. Game scripted out however you want. There's a million ways it could happen, to be fair. Injuries, Lilo Farms, lots of things. But then the thing Russ said is true as well. It's Trey Lance. Trey Lance had a couple of good games like that. And it skyrocketed for you with a Trey Lance owner, and now try and trade it to someone else at that value. I don't think a lot of people go, oh, well, I'm going to buy in after 1 game for sure. I don't.
Absolutely.
I mean, you're doing the Zach Reed thing where, like, in my league, I can definitely get that off someone. But I'm like, I've never had that experience.
I can go back and find shows where we literally told people to do exactly that.
To try. Yeah. True.
Like, and people were like, how many leagues you're in, Russ, that people traded for Trey Lance when everyone thought Trey Lance was going to be the starter and he had the Konami code upside, and like that was the thing. Like, Trey Lance was literally quarterback 7 for a while, and we were like, don't do that. Like, trade him now. Like, we said buy him when he was 17, like QB 17, like that's fine, like whatever. When he went to 7 or 8, you're like, no, let's trade him. And it's the same thing with Penix. Like, if all of a sudden Penix is a top 12 quarterback, get out of him. Because the chances of him actually being a top 12 quarterback are not as great as the people wanting him to be a top 12 quarterback.
Great. Yeah, sure. And see, those trades could happen. And now I'm just saying the 99% of outcomes, that game doesn't happen. And then you just go, Michael Penix.
But the rose-colored glasses of something that hasn't disappointed us yet gives us the hope that could happen.
But for me, Peter,
we are fickle. 1 year of nothing, even if we expected it, is going to disappoint us.
But what's the value of any of those other players who aren't the 4 players who succeed next year? So why not take
the thing, though? That's why I said I would take the running back in that range, because the chances he does something this year is actually.
And I said that too. Like, I said that.
Yeah, I know. We were in agreement.
But there's still
now I'm arguing for it.
But there's still value in taking Penix in the early to mid first because everybody is dumb when it comes to quarterbacks.
Yeah, it just doesn't change the guy I would prefer in that range.
Never mind. You're literally you're arguing for Brooks, and we already said we'd take Brooks. You're arguing for Benson. We already said we'd take Benson. I'm saying that I would take the upside of a quarterback where everyone misvalues bad quarterbacks. Then I would take a wide receiver that is just going to be dust.
Mm-hmm.
That's it.
I guess I'm counting on a 38-year-old QB recovering from a bad injury, not playing the full season. I mean, you can make anything sound good when you say it like that, Joe. But yeah, sure.
I thought she was talking about Penix for a second.
Full house. Pretty much, yeah, it's nice. Alan Davis is laughing at me, I'm assuming. Very cool. Hi, Russ, says Joe. Flowsource, those expectations of sitting and doing nothing is baked into the 202 spot. It's not, though.
No, it is. But, like, don't forget, Bo Nix wasn't drafted that much later, and he's going later than Michael Penix. So, like, it is and it isn't. Like, if Kirk Cousins wasn't there, maybe Penix goes 3 or 4 picks earlier. But I think no one in their right mind thought that Penix should have gone that early in the draft. So, like,
I thought Penix should go above Nix. Like, I didn't think Nix was a first-round pick,
and I didn't think Penix was either. But at the end of the first, like, trade up it back in to go get him. Like, don't forget that, like,
you have to.
That's what happened to Lamar Jackson, and we're talking about Michael Penix here. And of course, that one thing, like, hey, Drew Brees was drafted in the second, whatever. But like, I think that and like Drake May, was drafted 3rd overall, and there's no one in front of him, and he's still getting drafted like in the middle end of the first most times. He's rising a little bit now, back again. Like, he was in the 108, 109 area. Now he's back to the 5, 6, like in that top tier for my more recent drafts. But still, that we're past the point as a community where starting QB means exponential value. We've gotten past that, and that's great, because not every starting quarterback is worth a first. We're not there anymore, and that's great. And that is what this is more about than the fact that he's sitting for a year. It's absolutely in there. I really do think it is baked in there, but I don't think it would have gotten that much higher, even if we thought he was starting day one.
I think you have to buy into Penix's evaluation. You have to think he's a first-round pick. You have to think he at least is decent if he has a job. Otherwise, most of these arguments, which is part of why my odds roll a little bit, I have to admit, arrogant though it may be, is because you can make that argument for Spencer Rattler or any QB. If he gets one game and he has 4 touchdowns and people are excited about the team, yeah.
But it's different.
So you have to buy into Penix. Like, that has to be bought in. And that's perfectly fine. Like, I think he's fine. Yeah, he's fine. He's better than Rattler.
He's a top 8 pick.
Yeah.
Like, the NFL.
But you have to think he's a top 8 pick, like, when he gets on the field.
No, you don't, because he is a top 8 pick.
Okay.
So are we, like, we're just...
But we're talking about performance changing his value, which means you have to think he can perform. And I know you said about his weapons, but, like...
No, you have to
be good enough to...
You literally just hypothetical if he was starting. So if he's starting and he's a top 8 pick, he is a top 8 pick. Like,
but he has to perform well. You have to believe he can perform well if he's starting and a top 8 pick. If he's performing and a top 8, if he gets the game and he's a top 8 pick and sucks, you have to believe he can not suck. If not, like, the game goes well. Like, that's what I'm saying. Like, I would believe that over Penix over Rattler. Otherwise, you can make the same argument about Rattler.
I mean, yeah, if it doesn't matter who it is. If they don't play well, then they don't have value. I mean, it's the same thing as May. Like, if May comes in and is bad, but May's still going as a top 6 pick right now.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, because Russ was bringing up he didn't think he was an actual first-round pick. And, like, if that's part of it, then I'm not sure you should be as heavy on the potential for that value rise if you're evaluating him down. Or do you have a lower evaluation?
I don't think it's going to be that much of a value rise. So, I'm not on board with. I'm on board with him in the second. That's absolutely fine. Any starting quarterback or quarterback that is in the situation that Penix is in, also, should absolutely be drafted in the second round of a rookie draft.
He absolutely should.
But I'm not going to draft him in hopes that his value goes up and I can trade him for a first later. That's not what you do with this situation.
Elsewhere would he go? You have to take him eventually. I mean, don't threaten me with a good time, but it's perfectly fine. It just depends who's on the board. That's it. Paul Cicero, how worried should we be with the old QBs coming back from serious injuries? Cousins, Rodgers, I think we should be concerned with them anyway, just in general, because of their value arc. But in terms of on the field, I don't think either of their injuries are concerning enough at that position. But I don't know. We haven't seen Rodgers playing good in a minute.
Just take a quarterback out.
Luck. But that wasn't one.
No, that was not an injury.
That was not
years
one
of abuse that got him.
Yeah.
I mean,
besides like RG3, like that took him out.
Yeah.
Like, he was, but that's different. Like
that happened several times still.
Yeah. Like has anyone gotten hurt once, even as an older quarterback, and then just like never been good again?
But this is a different injury though. So like we're not talking an ACL. We're not like this is an Achilles, which like. And I know modern medicine has come a long way, but it's the same thing where everyone's like, oh, Jimmy Graham's going to come back. And I'm like, guy, I know that we can't say we're doctors, but I have torn a patella tendon. Jimmy Graham's not coming back and being Jimmy Graham. I will tell you that. Like that does not and he didn't. Like it's a different injury. And I don't know the severity and I'm not in the medic, but like an Achilles tear is different than every other injury we've seen for every other quarterback. So I don't think we have a precedent for this.
Oh, absolutely. And I didn't meet, and clearly you.
That's a good point.
The same injury to two players, you can't really wait.
The medicine improved with a number of good players.
I love that we do this every single time I'm on the show, and I start to do it on purpose and just wait for him to think I stop so I can start talking again. Like. You can't absolutely correlate even two people that tear their ACL. They're not going to heal the same. It's just they're different. I don't even want to call them human beings because they're not. They're sports machines. And yeah, you're right. We've never, but like up until 2 years ago, we haven't seen a running back get on the field and play decently after tearing their Achilles. And we've had a few that looked pretty good. Like we haven't had any great ones come back and be great, but like Deonta Foreman had a really good season in Carolina, no less. And compared to what we thought Deonta Foreman could do in general, that was a great season. Come on, give the man some credit. But like, man, who was like, I guess Akers was whatever, but like, he still came back and he played pretty well. It's just the team didn't care about him anymore. And, maybe he did fall off the face of the planet, but like, I don't know. Like, I'm not going to bet on Cousins and Rodgers being bad now because of an injury. Like that's really like, so the answer is not really.
I mean, it depends on what value.
Yeah. And that's the even better thing about this.
They're the same already, as you had a year or two.
They're old
already. They're already discounted.
Yeah, exactly. And I don't think you further discount them is what I should say.
I would agree with that.
I think this is the
12 out of 4 equals 4.
I think that was the wide receiver math we were working on. We're trying to figure out what a top 24 wide receiver meant.
No, she was saying that there are 4.
I promise I'll be able to sell Penix for a first and a half in the next coming year. Cool. And people will get hyped from his preseason highlights, let alone anyone playing a game this year. Okay, but if you can't, that means it failed, right? Like, just to understand the logic, which is fine. With a second-round pick, you expect it to fail, to be fair. So you're taking, again, it's just a chance you're taking. And I was saying, let's take the running back first. Like, that was it. And then there's, it's a risk and fairly big one. Well, not a big one.
Really,
second round pick. You know what I mean? It's not exactly likely to happen. Drew Sorensen music. Would Jordan Travis worth taking at the 408? I don't think I have any.
Anyone is worth taking at the 408.
I don't know. I might have looked at him, but I can't remember him. We're taking at the
I would
408.
bring
He's a QB.
Peter
And, that guy. And Rodgers isn't playing forever. I mean, probably. Also, his throws look effortless, and he can run. Probably flops, but if he hits hard,
Travis
right?
Jordan. Oh yeah,
QB.
looks like Zach drafted him.
The 410. I took him at the 410 because I
Well, not the 408. You have to wait till the 410.
Yeah, so trade back a pick, Drew. But yeah, like again, taking a flyer on a quarterback who was in the conversation a year ago for the Heisman, who's coming off an injury, who like fell because he was coming off an injury, to sitting behind Vice President Aaron Rodgers. Like I'm not like, I don't mind taking that shot.
Yeah, in the fourth, who cares? Absolutely.
Cypher, hey guys, 10 teams to flex PPR non-tight end premium start 11. Would you trade Levis, Kincaid, and DK for Caleb?
Yep.
DK is really the thing here. DK for Caleb in a super flex? Yeah, Caleb.
I would very easily trade the three of them for even in a start 11 where you need the depth. You are so easily trading those three for Caleb.
Yeah, very, very comfortably. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. I agree, Mr. Scampers. Thank you. Wide receiver as deep has always been a thing, Peter. Yeah, I know, but the drum beat on it gets louder and quieter, and it's always wrong. But it can actually devalue the position when it's extreme, I think. But isn't it true the points per game is linear without steep drop-offs? It's more steady at wide receiver, but there are drop-offs. The point is, if it gets too deep, the value doesn't accurately reflect that, I guess is what I'm trying to say. Like if you're valuing someone in that drop-off the same as someone over that drop-off, because there are 50 top 24 wide receivers, then the value becomes clear. And also what I'm saying what I was trying to take from what Zach was saying is the points per game might get even more even. There might be less drop-offs, and then the position itself is actually devalued. Because you're just, again, the other way of thinking about it is the extremes. You want the wide receiver that scores 20 points per game, can score 20 points in a game. Not the wide receiver that consistently scores 12. Not that any wide receiver is ever consistent for a long period of time. And that same logic, once you apply it to a deep and smorgasbord of linear regression, means that you just want the ones that actually have that upside. And so even if the points per game is linear, it's not linear because some actually have the upside and some don't. You know what I mean? That's, yeah.
But also just to also agree with the fact that wide receiver has always been deep. You know, it was maybe even 10 years ago where I convinced, my home keeper league that we should change our starting lineup requirements from 2 running back, 2 wide receivers to 2 running back and 3 wide receivers, because there were so many good wide receivers. We should start more of them. And that's exactly what made me so happy was when I tried to tell him about Superflex. He's like, that's the stupidest thing ever. And I'm like, remember the time with wide receivers? And then he tried Superflex and loved it. But no, wide receiver has always been deep. That's why we've started, again, before I learned of the beauty of only having to start one and everything else being a flex. Like I started adding wide receiver spots because there were so many good wide receivers and I love wide receivers. That's how I build my teams and everything. But yeah, wide receiver has always been deep. We just adjust with it. And now we're getting to the point where it's so deep that we're probably going to fall back into a running back renaissance at the same time where we have no workhorse running backs soon. So that's going to be fun.
The drop-offs still exist, even if it's always been.
It's just further down.
Them running back a little bit, like it's from 8 to 13-ish, I think. The second significant one. It's different. Joe, I agree, Mr. Scampers. You always have. I'm always agreeing with you. I don't like it. JC Troller on the clock in the 2 QB in that 2 QB 2 tight end premium league. I mentioned start 12. Have Caleb, Purdy, Penix. What you have shouldn't affect it, but okay. Bowers, Njoku, H.A.N. Eckler, Odunze Worthy, Keenan Allen, Chris Godwin, Debo. Do I take the last QB here, Russ, or continue running back wide receiver?
You have to take a quarterback because it's 2 QB. You need to start 2 QBs, and Penix isn't going to start. So you need a starting quarterback to play when one of your guys has a bye.
Oh, Caleb and Purdy. But yeah, so you're right. You got to have one.
Because Penix isn't – we're going to assume Penix isn't playing this year. So you need a third quarterback to play when those guys have bye weeks. So, yeah, I take Russ here. Even, like, again, regardless of what your team looks like, and just quit that league because you shouldn't play 2 tight ends. All right, I'm staying for one more question because it's a very good question. But then
I mean, you got the shirt.
Oh, yeah, that's right. I forgot what shirt I was wearing.
The only question would be whether the tight ends left. Outside of that,
when you are stuck in a requirement that's going to make demand very high and the supply not great, you hammer those positions. In a 2 tight end, 2 quarterback, your first 5-6 rounds should only be quarterbacks and tight ends. Let other people draft, their wide receivers and running backs, but all of a sudden they're going to be taking zeros or starting tight ends that I've never heard their names of before.
I think I'm going to take burritos in this one. Yeah.
It's a mood thing because sometimes you want every food possible wrapped in a tortilla in case you need a burrito. How much work? Like I remember I saw a post of some sort where someone said, instead of towering nachos higher and higher, we need just longer plates instead. Everything is more laid out and you don't have just bland chips on the bottom of all of that. Like these are all very mood dependent. So I'm going to say my safe choice is tacos because you can't go wrong with tacos. But like there are just some times where you need one of these and no others will suffice.
I think you've put more thought into this than I've put into anything. I just said burritos.
I take my food very seriously.
I mean, no, I wasn't.
I love that Zach and I are very much agreed on this, but also totally opposite on this because Zach will just say yes. and because he'll eat all of those and I will eat all of those too, but I have reasons, I have situations, like I think about it and he doesn't bother thinking about it because it's just
yeah.
All right, good night everybody, love you all.
Good night, Ross.
Thega Whiteside was Devin Funches. Devin Funches actually had a good season. Thank God. But less successful. Much less. Mike Talbot, Panthers legend. Absolutely. For the Jalen Talbot, I remember. Continued from above. The Whopper in this league is interesting. Or the Warp. I forget what that means right now. Wide receivers and running backs more or less 1 of 1 out of 36. Huh. Thomas Jr. or Higgins? Higgins. Like both, maybe a both.
Yeah. But I like they're pretty like if Thomas is what I expect him to be, they're pretty similar. But you take Higgins because you know what he is.
Yeah. How would you rank Shakir, Downs, Roman Wilson? I would rank Downs. Again, Wilson falls into that blind spot for me, but I don't really. Downs is the only one I'm particularly interested in.
Oh, so for me, Peter, it's the exact opposite where like Shakir and Downs don't even like have fun with those guys. And Roman Wilson actually has potential to be fantasy relevant.
Okay. So it's the same, but a different name, I would say, actually. Like I'm Downs,
Yeah.
Neither of us care about Shakir.
No. Which means he'll probably be the wide receiver one in Buffalo.
Yeah. We had 2 out of 3, but it was that third one. I think it might be crazy, but it feels like a lot of people are too low on Roman Wilson. I know I definitely am. I just refuse to change, I guess. I got him at the 301 the other day. I'm the only one who thinks he will be good. No, Zach's been talking about him several times for this show. I was just looking. I saw you wrote him up as well.
Yeah, like again, like he's not he wasn't one of those wide receivers where I'm like, oh, this is a definite, but he was a wide receiver where there were enough flashes that I'm like, I like him. Let's see what happens with draft capital. He went in the 3rd round. He went to Pittsburgh. So not only is it a 3rd round, but Pittsburgh has been really good with identifying wide receivers. They have a need at the specific type of wide receiver that Roman Wilson is because they got rid of Deontay Johnson. And so I think that, like, again, I'm drafting him in the mid-second. So the 301, absolutely, that's too low in a 12-team league. I'm drafting him at probably the 305 or 205, 206, like every time.
Would you rather have Kyler or Richardson? Kyler by like a lot of country miles, personally.
Yeah,
I'm waiting for an objection, but it's
no. Sorry, no. I'm smiling and nodding. Kyler, absolutely.
Okay. Joe didn't start the fire. Yes, she did. She always starts the damn fire. That was so long ago and just came up after all of that. Yeah. Sorry, I'm getting tired. Oh, no. See, there's that song again. I just gotten that out of my head. Now rehab's back in my head. JC Troller, Penix was mocked on the first quite a bit prior to that Pro Bowl game. Yeah.
Yeah. And
was taken in the first, more specifically.
But I don't even think that was like, you can't blame that all on Penix, where like Michigan's defense was great and the offensive line wasn't great. And yeah, he made some questionable throws, but like, man, to take one bowl game and have it negate. And I think that's the issue, part of the issue with the way that fantasy and the way that the like draft process and the draft scouting happens, as opposed to the way the NFL draft scouts, because we get so reactionary with everything. And I don't think that necessarily the NFL is. I mean, I think they do react more than they probably should to small sample size, but they're better than we are. When we see an island game and a guy's bad, we're like, that guy sucks. And if we see an island game where the guy's good, all of a sudden JJ McCarthy is a first-round pick, where he wasn't all the way up until the bowl game.
I realize that Superflex is the main format now, but is it the main already? I think it's competitive. Probably, maybe. But hearing how high of a pedestal QBs get put on is why it's kind of relaxing to play one QB from time to time. Yeah, I enjoy one QB. There's no reason you have to play Superflex. I enjoy it, but I enjoy one QB too. Yeah.
My home
put all that conversation aside, and only 3 QBs matter, and nuts to the rest. Yeah.
Well, and Frank, like I'm like, my home league is one quarterback, and my former co-host Kyle Lebrecht will like pound the table for one quarterback. And in fact, we won quarterback with quarterback premium. And so it striates the quarterback. So it makes the top quarterbacks more valuable and everybody else not. It nerfs some of the bad quarterbacks. And I prefer to play in leagues that have that, regardless of whether it's Superflex or one quarterback, because I don't care about the bad quarterbacks. I just don't.
Penix can throw, Lance can't. Fair point.
It's true, but Lance can run and Penix can't. So,
I mean, yeah. Swings and roundabouts. And my expectation is my future QB2 that I bought for a second. I think the second contract is well within his range of outcomes. Yeah, I think the value is fine for that. Yeah. What's up, party people? Thanks, buy and sell you. Joanna, the Seahawks, Raiders, and Saints all tried to trade up in the top 10 for Penix. And the NFL thinks Penix is it. Yeah, I mean, he was mocked there. He was drafted there. I think it's pretty solid. Trey Aubrey Lance is 1 day younger than Michael Terrence Penix Jr. FYI. Well, that's good to know. Basically the same prospect. They're just old.
Yeah, but like quarterback age doesn't matter as much as the, like, again, if you're talking running backs and wide receivers, and it's going to be different now until they revamp the transfer portal.
Right.
And the eligibility rules, because they still get the COVID eligibility rules. Like Michael Penix was in college for 6 years.
Must be nice.
Yeah.
That sounds fun. The doctors now. Joe Theismann.
Yeah, but Theismann and Alex Smith did like completely destroyed their legs, like entire legs, not just ligaments, like bones, ligaments, muscles, tendons, everything.
I remember the Alex Smith injury.
Yeah, and Theismann did the same thing, but like 20 years earlier.
Yeah. What's Corum's value now? Mid-second-ish, I think. Mid-late second.
Yeah, I got him at 19, so like like right in the middle of the second.
Philip J. Fry, 12-team Superflex PPR half-point tight end premium start 10. There's a team. Trade McBride and Amon-Ra St. Brown for Kelsey and Chase. I mean, yes. I mean, Chase. Chase side.
Yeah.
Lose the stack. The stack shouldn't weigh that heavily on you. I mean, stacking's perfectly fine. I'm not worried they're on the same team. And yeah, every now and again, it's going to feel pretty good. But stacking in Dynasty isn't really viable.
But he gained a better stack with Mahomes and Kelsey.
Oh, that's true. Didn't even think. Javonte looks okay on a bad team. Javonte Williams, I was disappointed. He had his chance last year. Bad team or no, the volume was there, consistently there. Targets and rushing share, and he just couldn't put it together. He had a few okay games, no great games. I'm disappointed at this point, but he remains on that depth chart capable of doing that. So it's somewhat interesting. Yeah, I'm disappointed by this point, even as a running back. Magneto would call those sports machines Homo superior, probably. Zach, if Aaron Rodgers, let's say, went down in week 4, wait, this seems like a hypothetical that's like you're saying for someone, sorry, this reads weird to me. Let's say he goes down in week 4, is Tyrod taking over 100%?
I mean, it's either Tyrod or a trade. Like Travis is still coming off an injury, so I don't think he's going to be ready to play. I don't think he's going to be ready to play for them. So it's either Tyrod as the backup or they make a trade for a veteran. If they're terrible, it's Tyrod. Like if they're 0-4 or 1-3, if in the hypothetical Aaron Rodgers decides to lock himself in a dark room for the rest of the season, like then it's going to be Tyrod. If they are in the hunt in the division, then they'll probably make a move to go get somebody, I would think.
Unless Russ loses his gig right away. I think Russ is going to be solid. He'll be fine. He did a better job than you think last year, even though it was bad. I would say. 2 tight end premium. Grab any starting tight end if available. Yeah, pretty much. The taco quotient is valid. Good night, Russ. Good night, Russ. Everyone says Russ. Do you like Sonata? Yeah, I like, especially where he's being drafted. But again, same thing, but slightly better. I like him slightly better that we said for Stover. Like, we're struggling with a range of outcomes being significant overall for fantasy, but a really good player and a better profile than Stover had significantly. But even Stover's was solid, and Sonat's was pretty good. Just under that good category.
I got like a group of tight ends in the 3rd.
Yeah.
So like Sinnott, Sanders, and all.
Solid. The only striations I know about are on David. 12-team Superflex PPR half-point tight, same league, same team. Should they be worried about depth? Never, honestly. 12-team league, I mean, it matters relative to the fact that it's a 12-team league, but I tend not to focus on depth. I think it's overvalued, if anything. Again, we're looking for weekly winning, not weekly losing by less. That tends to be my typical thinking. I'm not so worried about depth, but it's all relative. I mean,
well,
an extra starting quarterback is really, really great in a superflex league, even if it's not something I focus and particularly desire. Because you have that fill-in, but then I would rather have, like Zach says all the time, rather start a tight end than have to go to someone like Goff, who's fine.
Yeah, and you can always attack depth if you need it. So you got all your 25 picks, you got all your 26 picks, you got all your 27 picks. If something happens, go to one of the teams that are down in your league, because this team should be a top team. Like you may have to pay a little bit extra, but I'll pay that tax when it happens rather than try to figure out who I need now when you don't know what's going to happen, week 8, 9, 10, whenever you need that depth. So
yeah, you can make the moves as and when you need them. I think that's a good way of looking at it. Thanks for everything, guys. Thanks for the conversation, JC Troll. Back to you. Thanks, Pete and Zach. Have a wonderful night. We'll try. We will try our best. We just did. This was a wonderful night. Appreciate you all, Zach and Russ. We got to see Russ again.
How's that? Beautiful.
Pretty wonderful. Rain Man, good night, man. They're telling us, like, we're done.
We did it.
Could you guys get tired?
Look over there.